Students at 𝒩𝒂Ⅎ University called out to Han Tisu. The young man turned in response to his name. Two female students approached Tisu, noting his perfect record for attending classes on behalf of others. They asked if he would do the same favor for them. He handed the shocked girls a printed price list for his proxy services. He confirmed that they had to pay a service fee for his help. He bluntly informed them that a single attendance cost 10,000 won. He firmly believed that nothing in life was free. After the girls transferred the money, a blonde male friend also requested his services. He handed him the price list and stated that he offered no discounts for friends. He sat in a lecture room calculating his massive monthly living expenses. He successfully answered the roll call for 3 absent students before the professor dismissed the class. He concluded that his basic survival required 1,000,000 won a month. His classmates noticed his sudden departure and mockingly speculated that he left to meet a girlfriend. The classmates dismissed the dating rumor, agreeing that the frugal student was definitely rushing to a part-time job. Meanwhile, he sprinted urgently out of the university gates. He utilized every precious second by working a shift at a gas station and attending his own lecture. Later, he braved the cold night to deliver food on a bicycle. Back home, Tisu checked the rising virtual gold prices on his monitor. He sacrificed his sleep to farm in-game currency and settled into his computer chair. He easily farmed in-game currency with his avatar. He appreciated the lack of physical labor and the ability to multitask. Another player named Fallen Power Angel abruptly interrupted his farming. The player hurled insults and demanded he leave their guild's territory. A virtual fight broke out while he monitored a barrage of inappropriate messages. He calmly noted the abundance of strange players in the game. The game remained profitable for him despite the harassment. Later at a police station, a young woman angrily insisted that the other party had provoked a fight first. Tisu stood in the police station and frustratedly questioned why he was being reprimanded alone. His frustration quickly shifted to sudden surprise. An officer identified the young woman as the user behind the Fallen Power Angel account. The woman was officially introduced as Mia. Tisu and Mia stared at each other in mutual disbelief. He let out a confused gasp as they recognized each other. She enthusiastically pointed at him and shouted his name in shock. Mia loudly confirmed Tisu's identity while he confusedly questioned hers. The police officer interrupted to ask if the two were acquainted. She smiled brightly and enthusiastically confirmed their acquaintance to the officer. She grabbed him from behind and cheerfully declared him her temporary ex-boyfriend. He internally noted that she was his ex-girlfriend from 5 years ago. Tisu recalled that during high school, Mia was an ordinary, unnoticed classmate. She spent her time reading alone. A hand silently slid a folded note onto her desk as she studied. The note instructed her to meet at the library at 4 in the afternoon. He casually told her he would see her later as he left the room. This left the quiet girl holding his invitation. Finding her excessively talkative, he clarified that he had no intention of apologizing and was simply walking his usual route home. He recalled the heartbreak of discovering her family had abruptly moved away overnight on the very day they were supposed to meet. Staring at her back in the present, Tisu debated whether to finally ask why she had left so suddenly. Observing her new piercings and delinquent attitude, he took in her new appearance. Observing her new piercings and delinquent attitude, he took in her new appearance. He internally questioned how the previously quiet girl could have transformed so drastically. He reasoned that drastic personal transformations were possible based on his former classmates, though he still found her extreme change difficult to process. As they walked down the street, he noted that her entirely unfamiliar demeanor contrasted sharply with how old acquaintances typically reunited. She abruptly turned around with a glare. She demanded to know why he was following her. She questioned if he regretted asking for 100,000 won over video game insults. Finding her excessively talkative, he clarified that he had no intention of apologizing and was simply walking his usual route home. She declared that while she might have apologized for her insults, she was not completely letting him off the hook. She forcefully pointed at him, emphasizing that she would absolutely never forgive his poor gaming etiquette. Reinstate the she forcefully original pointed at him fine. Forgive his blunt gaming etiquette ultimatum immediately shattered her defiant composure. Prompting a rapid change in demeanor, Mia suddenly feigned innocence and desperately begged him to waive the discounted 10,000 won fee. Tea-soo flatly rejected her act and insisted on the payment, claiming he was also tight on money. This caused her to drop the facade, agree to the reduced amount, and sourly mock his stingy nature. As she prepared to leave, he caught her attention by addressing her directly by name. He then earnestly asked how she had been doing during their long time apart. Caught off guard by the sudden personal question, she froze and stared at him in wide-eyed silence. Brushing off the inquiry, she stated that nothing notable had occurred and reminded him that they would never cross paths again once she paid her fine. She suggested they remain indifferent and stop being curious about each other's lives. She coldly added that they should continue living as if the other did not exist. Bidding him a final farewell, she turned and walked away without looking back. He noted that those were his ex-girlfriend's final words after their reunion 5 years later. He internally questioned her brief departure, feeling he deserved to be the angry one since she was the one who vanished without explanation. He admitted to himself that demanding the settlement money was merely a clumsy excuse to keep her around a little longer. Watching her fade into the distance, he finally accepted that they would truly never cross paths again. 1 month after their definitive ending, a public announcement echoed across the university campus. Hearing the broadcast summon freshman representative Cha-Mia, Tea-soo looked up in sudden surprise. The announcement directed her to the broadcast room while he unexpectedly stood face to face with a bespectacled girl outside the auditorium. He stared in disbelief as he realized the bespectacled girl standing before him was the freshman representative Mia. She covered her mouth in shock, expressing exasperation at running into him yet again. Sometime later, Tea-soo noticed a moving truck outside his building and realized a new tenant was arriving. Sitting on his bed, he marveled at the newcomer's luck in finding a place days after the semester began. He noted that vacancies in their affordable and conveniently located apartment building were incredibly rare. Encountering him outside the building, Mia glared in disgust and accused him of stalking her. While she attempted to call the police, he calmly presented his student ID to prove they attended the same university and department. He suddenly realized this meant she was his underclassman in the program. Unfazed by his seniority, she bluntly asked what his point was. Mia firmly reminded Tea-soo that they had agreed to pretend they didn't know each other. She added that they should mind their own business while formally addressing him as her senior. Stating that this arrangement would be better for both of them, she casually walked past him. Left behind, he silently questioned her logic in confusion. He wondered why she was so angry and insisted on living as if they didn't exist to one another. Shaking off his lingering thoughts, Tea-soo suddenly worried if the new neighbor moving in today was Mia. He quickly dismissed the unlikely possibility just as his doorbell began to ring. Opening the door, he asked for the visitor's identity and was greeted by a young woman holding a plate. She cheerfully introduced herself as his new next-door neighbor. She offered him a rice cake. Before aggressively smashing it directly into his face, trembling, she accused him of being a stalker. He retorted that she was the one who showed up at his place. Standing in his doorway, he asked if she planned to move out soon. She bluntly denied having any such intentions. Frustrated by her cheap lease, she suggested they completely ignore each other as neighbors. She firmly demanded to know if he understood her terms. He casually agreed while sarcastically addressing her as an older woman, causing her to immediately freeze in her tracks. Gripping a fire extinguisher, an unhinged Mia muttered that she had heard an unacceptable insult. She aggressively jammed the fire extinguisher into his closing door, demanding he open it to discuss his comment. Forcing her smiling face through the crack, she cheerfully threatened physical violence. He reflected that his ex-girlfriend from 5 years ago had just moved in next door. A memory surfaced of a younger Mia quietly reading in the library at sunset. A younger Tea-soo rested his head on a desk, recalling that sunset was his favorite time of day. Back in the present, Tea-soo ate a snack while wondering what had drastically changed Mia into someone who wanted to kill him. Tea-soo wondered if he had committed some past offense to provoke Mia's fierce hostility. Unable to recall any wrongdoing, he noted that she had broken their past promise. Just before his doorbell suddenly rang, he checked the intercom and opened the door for her, who immediately reminded him of their agreement to act like strangers. A drenched Mia hesitantly asked for help with her plumbing. This prompted him to step outside and discover a massive flood in the hallway. Inspecting the burst meter, he advised her to contact the landlord, though she admitted her calls were going unanswered. As she shivered uncontrollably while making another call, her state triggered his distant memory of a similarly freezing girl in the snow. He recalled how a young Mia had shivered the exact same way, inadvertently catching her attention with his intense stare. She aggressively accused him of staring at her, a claim he quickly denied. He maintained his innocence despite her insistence that they had made obvious eye contact. Defending himself against her suspicions, he awkwardly admitted he was simply worried about her. His sudden confession left her momentarily speechless. He grabbed her hood and insisted she come inside his apartment to dry off, prompting a panicked Mia to wildly swing her mop at him in self-defense. She told him she did not want to owe him anything and ordered him to go to bed. He asked if she would really be okay. He warned her that shutting off the pipe meant the boiler would also stop working. She insisted she was fine. He noted her stubbornness and proposed a fee of 1,000 won per hour. He clarified this was the cost to stay in his room. He reasoned that paying meant she would not owe him a favor. He stated it was a reasonable price. She hesitated. She then demanded one additional condition. He stood silently as the shower water started running. Tea-soo waited outside his bathroom. He questioned if letting her in was a good idea. He reasoned he only wanted her to stay warm until the landlord arrived. He noted she had paid an extra 3,000 won to shower. He questioned why she was suddenly acting defenseless. He remembered how wary she had been moments prior. He noticed an unusual feeling in his chest as he stood by the door. He quickly determined the sensation was not excitement. He suddenly realized he had forgotten something incredibly important. Two friends suddenly arrived early to check on his flooded apartment, making him realize this was the appointment he had completely forgotten. His friends jokingly asked why he was waiting in the cold and mourned the temporary loss of their favorite hangout spot. Observing the flooded hallway, they noted the burst pipe was actually next door, but explained that a worried Haeun had asked them to check on him. He panicked internally, knowing that if his friends barged in and found Cha-Mia inside, the situation would become incredibly annoying. He instructed them to deflect them. He finished offered to treat them to cleaning up so they could head out drinks outside. Planned a way to sneak her, leaving his ouchie friends suddenly opened a absolutely door and shocked at his announced that she was done showering, uncharacteristic generosity. His friend playfully pinched his cheeks in disbelief to check if he was an imposter, before eagerly accepting the free drinks. Relieved, he instructed them to leave their snacks in the fridge while he quickly finished cleaning up so they could head out. Just as he planned a way to sneak her out, she suddenly opened the door and announced that she was done showering. The sudden presence of a girl who had just showered caught the group completely off guard. His friends screamed in absolute shock, leaving him to realize his cover was completely blown. Two classmates aggressively confronted him, demanding to know the identity of the girl leaving the hotel with him. He slung an arm around her and calmly lied to the men that she was his actual younger sister. She stared in utter disbelief and anger at his bold lie. The classmates immediately called him a liar, arguing that someone so pretty could never be related to someone like him. He quickly whispered for the angry Mia to play along since the men were her upperclassmen. Changing her demeanor instantly, she cheerfully confirmed to the group that she was indeed his sister. Suddenly, someone slammed a fist violently against the nearby wall. An orange-haired girl appeared from the hallway with a terrifying gaze. She demanded to know why she had never heard this information before. She approached the group, stating that despite knowing Tea-soo for over a decade, she had never heard of him having a sister. Smiling sharply, Na Haeun demanded to know their true relationship. The next morning arrived at the university campus. Mia asked in disbelief if he was serious, and he firmly confirmed his stance. He explained that he had fabricated a story about her being his younger sister to cover up their situation. As passing students gossiped about their relationship, he maintained that nothing happened between them and blamed a bursting pipe incident from the previous day. He recalled that they only smoothed things over because the landlord arrived quickly to address the broken pipe. He formally identified the girl beside him as Na Haeun, who decided to trust his explanation since they had known each other for a long time. He revealed that she was not just a university junior, but a childhood friend he had known for over a decade. He noted that she was the youngest daughter raised in a prominent neighborhood taekwondo studio. Despite her small stature, she possessed a natural talent for fighting and established herself as a local legend by the 6th grade. Her aggressive reputation earned her the hometown nickname of the Crazy Chihuahua of Gwangjangdong, shortened to Dachai. Watching Tissue walk away with Mia, his female friend questioned her identity. She noted her drastically matured appearance. The male friend agreed that she seemed entirely different from the old her they remembered. The female classmate observed that, while she seemed physically similar, her entire presence felt completely foreign. She then questioned why she had vanished without a word, only to suddenly return, pointing out how much he had suffered during her absence. The classmates' complaints were abruptly interrupted by the arrival of Song Hisu. She was the student council president. Hisu thanked them for helping with the department's trip preparations, prompting an enthusiastic offer of physical labor from the group. She expressed concern that Tissue might be too busy with his part-time jobs to help out. Smiling brightly, he revealed a resignation letter and explained he had quit all his conflicting jobs just to make time in his schedule. He assured her not to worry, as he had recently acquired extra income, eagerly asking for tasks. Watching his overly enthusiastic behavior, his female friend grumbled that he only acted this way in front of the council president. Wondered how much more he was watching his overly hiding from them. Acted this way in front of the meanwhile, he council president obediently followed her directions, reflecting on his hidden feelings for the older student. Working diligently alongside her, he admitted to himself that she was the person he currently had feelings for. He resolved to keep his crush a strict secret, especially from his 2 male friends who immediately began teasing him. They poked his cheeks and mocked his sudden willingness to do unpaid volunteer work. The friends smugly declared that they already knew the real reason behind his changed behavior. As one correctly guessed, that it was all because of a girl he blushed violently in sheer panic. However, his friends completely misunderstood the situation, assuming his true motivation was the newly arriving freshman. They excitedly gossiped about rumors praising the incredible beauty and elite backgrounds of the incoming female students. A friend playfully grabbed him, teasing him about the impressive girl he had brought yesterday. The group continued joking about Hae-eun until he abruptly turned away from them. She interrupted the friends, sternly ordering everyone back to work. She then flashed an intimidating smile that forced the nervous group to immediately comply. The students finished packing boxes in the clubroom as a member announced the end of the day's work. Hisu thanked the group for their efforts and instructed the student council to arrive early the next morning. He and she respectfully acknowledged her directions. As they prepared to leave, she called out to him and her. She expressed her gratitude to them for arriving early despite not being council members. She promised to buy them drinks after the upcoming trip and playfully warned them not to skip it. He overenthusiastically swore he would attend no matter what, leaving the girls slightly bewildered by his intense dedication. Later that evening, Tissue arrived at his apartment building and entered his passcode. He admitted to himself that Mia's sudden return had genuinely unsettled him. As he walked inside, he reflected that Hisu was still a great person to him regardless of her reappearance. He reached his apartment door just as he spotted her standing in the hallway holding heavy grocery bags. Her bags were completely overflowing with various food items. Shocked by the sheer amount of groceries, Tissue bluntly warned Mia that she would gain weight if she ate it all. His careless comment immediately offended her. She angrily demanded to eat what she wanted, claiming she planned to eat the snacks on the upcoming trip. He retorted that the snacks were already bought with club funds specifically for the bus ride. He expressed surprise and asked if she was also attending the trip. She firmly confirmed her attendance. He bluntly asked her to skip the trip so her presence would not ruin his experience. She argued that as a senior he should skip instead since it was her first trip as a freshman. He placed his hand on her head and asked what she was trying to say. He seriously questioned what exactly annoyed her so much and what he had done wrong. She coldly retorted that he was the one at fault. He pressed his hand against the wall near her and pleaded for an explanation for her anger. She slapped his hand away and sarcastically agreed that she was at fault. She strictly warned him not to act like he knew her. He shouted her full name in frustration as she swiftly turned and walked away. She violently slammed the door shut, leaving him standing alone in the hallway. He sighed in disbelief and wondered why their encounters always turned out so poorly. On the day of the MT, a woman informed the group that unexpected arrivals left no room on the bus. She instructed Tea-Soo and Mia to travel separately in her car. As the other students boarded the bus, they stood behind in confused silence. The packed bus departed down the road. Inside the noisy bus, an orange-haired girl suddenly looked up in surprise. A bob-haired friend asked what was wrong, prompting the girl to nervously dismiss the concern. The friend teased her about missing Tea-Soo, which she frantically denied. The friend then revealed that he had taken Heese's car. Adding that a freshman named Mia was also with him, the statement left the orange-haired girl completely stunned. Tea-Soo asked from the driver's seat if her 2 passengers were ready and had all their belongings. Mia confirmed her readiness before staring in confusion as Tea-Soo strapped a motorcycle helmet onto his head. He handed her a second helmet for safety, ignoring her protests about wearing motorcycle gear inside a standard car. He ominously defended the precaution just before she slammed on the gas and rocketed the vehicle forward. The car swerved violently down the road as the unprepared passengers screamed in terror. The chaotic ride finally concluded when the vehicle parked outside a local rest stop. The traumatized Mia slumped backward onto a bench looking completely drained and nauseated. Tea-Soo pressed a cold drink against her cheek. This prompted the dizzy Mia to ask if she had died and if he was the Grim Reaper. He explained that Heese's terrifying driving reputation was the reason everyone else took the bus. She noted she was mostly disturbed that the recklessly driven car lacked a single scratch. When she asked why he was handing her a beverage, he clarified that Tea-Soo had actually bought it for her. She asked him to relay her thanks, but clarified she disliked coffee. Her unexpected statement caused him to react with visible confusion. He questioned her sudden claim about disliking the drink as they walked together. He recalled a past moment where they sat together while she drank from a can, wondering aloud why he assumed she liked it and bringing up their old park visits. She suggested he was confusing her with someone else, though she admitted she might have liked coffee back then. She dismissed the topic entirely, stating she did not remember those old stories. She then called out him by his full name, startling him. She briefly apologized to him. She firmly stated she did not want to dwell on useless past memories. Turning back toward him, she asked if they could just treat each other like strangers. She bowed respectfully to him, formally addressing him as her senior. Pleaded with him to treat her like an Tea-Soo unfamiliar reflected on the junior. As 2 silently coffee facing away. Pleaded with him to treat her like an Tea-Soo unfamiliar reflected on the junior. Decisive rejection he had received, realizing the Mia he once knew was completely gone. He wondered why she had even bothered to say she remembered him back then. He thought things would have been easier if she had just pretended not to know him at all. His thoughts were interrupted when Subin approached with a smile and asked what he was doing. Unusual, he excuse, person to change. Lowered her Tea-Soo phone and asked him what was answered, a wrong phone call, to confirm they were almost at their destination. He actually quite mused that 5 similar. Lowered her Tea-Soo phone and asked him what was answered, a wrong. He stared back at her in silence with a visibly surprised and flushed expression. He internally began to acknowledge his feelings, just as a peer commended their choice of location for the trip. He proudly replied that he and she had put a lot of thought into the planning. She stated this was their final trip before graduation and they wanted to make it memorable. He smiled at a compliment about his seniority while privately establishing his single goal. Walking through the parking lot, he reassured her about covering the expensive accommodation costs. She inquired about the missing freshman, and he explained she had gone for a short walk. They found the freshman panting heavily while wearing full protective sports armor. The armored freshman declared her readiness, prompting her to ask if her driving was truly terrifying. The freshman frantically denied being scared as she grabbed her heavy helmet. The group arrived at the modern pension building later that morning. A nauseous student collapsed from her driving. The others noted that only the indifferent he remained unaffected. Freshman Shin Dabin tapped him on the shoulder. She asked if he had a moment to spare. A woman with long brown hair announced the conclusion of the freshman orientation. She directed the students to gather around the fire pits for casual drinks in pre-assigned groups of 6. Someone raised a beer can and proposed a celebratory toast for their department. The crowd erupted in cheers while Tea-Soo stood quietly with his drink between a smiling Dabin and an irritated orange-haired girl. A male student asked to change groups, but was informed that switches were only permitted once per hour. Realizing he was the sole male placed in a group with 5 girls, he cursed his situation under the resentful glares of the other men. She smiled brightly and clinked her beer can against his drink to toast him. Someone called for everyone to drink up, prompting a loud group cheer. The sudden noise startled the orange-haired girl who was holding 2 cans. He watched silently as a dark-haired girl rapidly chugged her drink. Mia lowered her can with a flushed face, prompting a confused look from him. She glared at him and asked if cheering was mandatory before every sip, causing him to awkwardly deny it. He nervously sipped his drink while silently observing the intense demeanors of the girls around him. The high turnout was caused by 3 freshman influencers, starting with the successful study vlogger Ha Yoonji. The second influencer was Do Yeonwoo, a pale girl famous for running a popular horror-themed radio channel. Another student asked in disbelief if he really did not know the third influencer, Shin Dabin, to which he cluelessly replied that he did not. A short black-haired girl excitedly praised her for being a famous game influencer. She modestly asked her friend not to overhype her. She smiled shyly and downplayed her gaming skills. He silently concluded that she was the most famous of the 3 freshmen. He recalled Heese's message explaining he was assigned to the famous freshman group because he was a safe bet. He internally questioned what that meant. She eagerly asked him if he played games, prompting him to admit he played occasionally. He immediately noticed the surrounding men glaring at him with intense jealousy. She enthusiastically asked about his server for a specific game. She was thrilled when he named the exact same server she used. He casually asked her if she was also on that server. Caught off guard, she violently spat out her drink. Sweating nervously, Mia frantically feigned ignorance and pretended the game title referred to a restaurant. Jisoo suddenly remembered their prior agreement to act like strangers. Dabin mentioned a notorious troublemaker on their server who d his name. He blankly confirmed that he was indeed that infamous player. Someone washed their hands in the bathroom sink while celebrating a sudden realization. Scrubbing her hands vigorously, she grinned maniacally as she rejoiced over uncovering his secret gaming identity. She told her friend she knew it was him after hearing his name and school location. Her friend asked for her reasoning, prompting her to grit her teeth in frustration. In a video game memory, her avatar told a crying guildmate that she was quitting. Blaming him for ruining her boss fight, she seethed with rage in the restroom. She shocked her friend by announcing a plan to seduce him for revenge. She confidently boasted that she never failed to seduce her targets. She envisioned a scenario where their constant school encounters would spark a passionate romance. She planned to brutally reject his love confession, though Haeun bluntly mocked the unrealistic fantasy. They stepped into the freezing night. The girls complained about being forced to use the outdoor restrooms. She looked up to see 3 towering bald men staring directly down at her. She froze in terror as one of the men called her cute and mentioned she looked familiar. She sprinted toward the group outside the house, frantically calling for the seniors because something was wrong. The panicked girl urgently gasped out Dabin's name. She grimaced in distress as she tried to explain the escalating situation. Team the panickhead, prompting him to question girl if that was actually an urgently issue. Excited, she fans rushed past, grimaced in distress as she tried to violently explain the knocking her off balance. She ordered him to assist inside while dragging her away to help outside, leaving him entirely confused by his assigned task. A hand suddenly gripped the fabric of his shirt tightly. He paused as she held onto his clothes and firmly warned him not to go outside. Mia urgently informed him that a serious problem had occurred in the girls' dormitory. A finger pointed directly at a black wall outlet adapter plugged into the wall socket. Crouching beside the suspicious outlet, Dabin gestured toward it while holding up her phone for Jisoo. She displayed a typed message on her screen revealing that the outlet adapter was actually a hidden camera. He reacted in loud disbelief upon seeing the message. His reaction prompted an annoyed Dabin to harshly silence him by covering his mouth. Standing back outside under a street lamp, Jisoo asked Dabin how she had known about the hidden device. She explained that she had encountered a similar outlet-type camera before, noting how difficult they were to spot by eye. Her expression hardening, she firmly stated that her prior knowledge was not the pressing issue at hand. She aggressively emphasized the urgent need to determine who planted the camera and when it was placed. He stood in shock as he processed the disturbing implications of the hidden device. In a memory of the library, Dabin leaned excitedly over her book and loudly asked why things happened. Other students in the library glared at them as her loud curiosity disturbed the quiet. Hiding her face in embarrassment, she listened as Tea-Soo began to speak. He explained that he loved visiting the library to better understand people's motivations. He described how he enjoyed following the flow of their thoughts and asking, but why though? Walking outside that night, Tea-Soo noted that asking why was his friend Mia's old catchphrase. He explained that she stubbornly used the awkward phrase simply because she liked how it sounded. Flushed with awkwardness, Dabin asked him why he was staring at her. Looking away nervously, he admitted that her polite speech sounded weird to him. She nervously assumed he felt awkward relying on her. Harsh behavior had made it difficult for Flushed him with to trust her now. She had been apologized worry for her about the lack of social grace situation, prompting him to realize how much she had been worrying about the situation. Admitted he that her polite accepted her speech sounded weird reasoning to him, understood her perspective. She firmly decided that she would start speaking casually with him from now on. Dabin told Han Tea-Soo that she desperately needed his help with the hidden camera situation. She confessed that there was no one else she could really go to about this disturbing discovery. She reminded him of his sharp investigative skills, recalling how he once solved a class theft when everyone else had given up. She admitted her embarrassment in asking a near stranger for a favor, but stressed that he was her only hope. Tugging at his sleeve, Mia pleaded with him to stop pretending they were strangers and to take her request seriously. Realizing this was the same Mia he used to know, he asked her if the hidden camera could have been installed by the dorm administration. She rejected the idea, explaining that theirs was the only targeted room and that strict security prevented any male students from entering the building. She reminded him that severe car sickness had kept her bedridden ever since their arrival. She confidently stated that the camera adapter had definitely not been plugged into the wall outlet when she first entered the room. She explained that she first noticed the suspicious adapter right before the orientation began. His expression hardened in sudden realization as he deduced exactly who must have installed the hidden device. She reasoned that one of her 3 roommates could be involved in the camera's placement. She considered the possibility that either Do Yeonwoo Shin Dabin or Ha Yoonji was the one who planted it. Dabin handed him a canned drink and added that it might also be someone close to her roommates. They concluded that if her account was completely accurate, the incident had to be an inside job. They realized this meant the culprit was definitely someone within their own department. Acknowledging the malicious intent, he took the drink and advised her not to tell the others just yet. She agreed that unfounded rumors could hurt innocent people, but she suggested they at least inform Hee-Soo. He nervously agreed and noted that the student council president was highly trustworthy. She bluntly asked if she was his crush. Her question caused him to flinch in sheer panic as his heart began to race. He awkwardly feigned ignorance, but she immediately called out his obvious deception. A drunk girl suddenly jumped out of the nearby bushes, scaring them both as she happily announced she had found them. The young man confronted Mia and Haeun, asking what they had been sneaking off to do and if she was drunk. He casually explained that he had defeated the entire wrestling club because they were annoying him. Mia nervously addressed a pouting Haeun. She recalled a previously awkward encounter the two of them had in the hallway. She pressed her about her true intentions, reminding her that she previously claimed attending the same school and moving next door were merely coincidences. She noted that Haeun had secretly called the man out despite insisting they act like strangers, leading him to assume she was just heavily intoxicated. She suddenly burst into tears and loudly accused the man of being a liar. Collapsing to the ground, she cried that he had falsely claimed their relationship was over and that he no longer liked her. She curled up on the pavement in distress, causing the man and her to panic and shout her name. Following her advice, Dabin agreed to keep the situation hidden from everyone except Hee-Soo until morning. As morning arrived, Tea-Soo watched a murmuring crowd gather outside. He looked on in concern as someone suddenly shouted from within the group. A short-haired girl pointed aggressively and yelled that she had witnessed the act. She accused Hee-Soo of secretly spying on their room. The accuser announced to the onlookers that she had installed a hidden camera. A girl stepped forward and urged everyone to calm down. He and Dabin stood among the crowd, confused by the mention of a camera. She clutched his shirt and asked what the spying accusation meant. She looked up in shock as the surrounding students began to whisper. He tensed up, sweating slightly as he processed the situation. He assured her that Mia would never do such a thing. Haeyoon noted the culprit's unexpected and direct confrontation. Ha Yoonji was officially identified as the culprit. She was introduced as Mia's roommate and a prominent YouTuber. She made her uncomfortable with forced friendliness at a party. She declined Han Tisu's offer to intervene, opting to stay at the gathering. She marveled at his sharp wits as a flashback to the previous night commenced. Carrying the red-haired girl, Han Tisu was questioned by Haeyoon on how he planned to find the female culprit without interrogating everyone. He confidently stated his simple plan to force the culprit to expose herself. She pointed out the critical risk of the culprit destroying the evidence if they merely sat back and did nothing. He countered by asking her when she thought people let their guard down the most. The question left her confused, wondering if he was posing a riddle to her. He reasoned that the best time to act was early in the morning, right after waking up. He elaborated that a sound sleep indicated the target had completely let their guard down. He concluded that snatching the device during this defenseless moment would force the target to come to them. He noted that only Hisu and Mia knew the truth, as someone loudly accused her of hiding the camera that morning. A short-haired girl angrily pointed at her and insisted that others had witnessed the act as well. The angry girl demanded confirmation from two other students who hesitantly agreed with her claim. The accuser claimed she was acting suspiciously with her belongings earlier and was seen pocketing an unknown item. Another girl admitted she had not realized it was a camera while he observed the expected culprit openly accusing her. He debated whether to intervene, worrying that stepping in might only complicate the situation further. She awkwardly laughed and brushed off the accusations by claiming she thought the matter was something serious. Another student presented a toothbrush to the shocked short-haired girl, stating it was the item in question. The girl in glasses questioned the sudden mention of a camera. This unexpected question caused Dabin to stammer defensively. She nervously looked away as she tried to gather her thoughts. She explained that she had accidentally overheard a private conversation. She accused the girl in glasses of claiming on the phone to be with famous people and planning to send them videos. Smirking, the girl in glasses asked her if she wanted to see the evidence. She abruptly thrust her smartphone directly into her face. She challenged her to thoroughly search the phone's gallery and messages to verify if any recordings existed. She demanded a formal apology if nothing was found, prompting a hesitant reaction from her. The girl in glasses smiled and asked if Dabin needed to check anything else to believe her. Mia then confidently revealed a packaged black face mask. A bag drops to the floor, spilling its contents as a voice nervously asks what is happening. She cheerfully displays her belongings, noting she only excluded the snacks they had already eaten. A senior tells her she did not need to go to such lengths, but she casually replies that misunderstandings happen. She looks around the room, asserting that showing her belongings is the fastest way to clear up the situation. Tisu internally concludes that the situation is over. He deduces that the culprit must be one of the roommates. Managing the hidden device would be too risky for an outsider. He notes that openly hunting the culprit would cause her to hide, making the best strategy to force her into exposing herself. He recalls leaving scented hand cream on the hidden camera to track the culprit. Retrieve the device means she managing the hidden remains unaware of its device would be discovery. Acknowledging this informational advantage, he admits his original plan was to wait for the panicked culprit. He intended to observe the situation and wait for the culprit to contact them out of panic. He questions her unusually bold behavior, wondering how she maintains such confident nerves. She stood perfectly still in the center of the room. Yoonji breathed heavily and noted how calm she remained despite facing severe accusations. She pointed aggressively at her and asked if there were still unchecked places to search. She shouted frantically that they needed to physically search her. She tried to convince the shocked crowd that she had secretly hidden the missing item on her person. Mia removed her glasses and asked if she could just admit to making a mistake and drop the situation. She stared down at her with a dark smile. She stepped closer and warned her that this was her final chance to resolve the matter quietly. She glared intensely and asked if they truly needed to escalate the conflict. He nervously intervened and pleaded with her not to resort to violence. Han Tisu froze in sudden confusion, questioning what was happening. A pair of glasses was abruptly tossed onto the floor. A heap of clothing was also tossed onto the floor. Mia suddenly pulled her sweatshirt over her head, leaving Haeun completely stunned. Her clothes dropped to the floor with a soft rustle. She confidently challenged Haeun to guess where the device was hidden now. Lifting her long dark hair, she mockingly asked if the device was concealed within it. She aggressively flipped her hair at an intimidated Haeun while repeating her taunting question. Leaning in close with a dark smirk, she menacingly asked if she needed to strip completely to earn her trust. Trembling with intense fear, Haeun stared back in silent terror as Mia pressed further. Staring down with a chilling glare, she firmly asked if exposing herself entirely would finally satisfy them. Tisu gently places a red jacket over Mia's shoulders as she stands quietly in the crowd. Startled, she pauses in surprise at the sudden gesture. She listens as he questions if her extreme actions during the confrontation were truly necessary. Ha Yoonji breaks down in tears, repeatedly apologizing and taking full responsibility for the hidden camera incident. The confrontation officially concludes with her crying and offering her total surrender to Mia. Hisu claps her hands together, urging the gathered crowd to drop the issue and move on. She announces that the misunderstanding has been resolved, while Mia deliberately chooses to de-escalate the situation. She suddenly interrupts the announcement to get her attention. She requests to speak with a terrified Ha Yoonji in private, reassuring the nervous onlookers that she will not resort to violence. Suggesting they have a drink to dispel the awkwardness, she prompts the president to move. She asks Hisu to have Tisu escort them inside. Tisu confronts Yoonji with the modified power strip. He stated that he delayed reporting her to confirm her motives and goals. He recalled her previously claiming that she wanted to avoid escalating the situation. He urged Yoonji to be honest, questioning why she possessed the camera when he was certain Mia had it. He raised the modified plug to address her unspoken confusion. Haeun unexpectedly grabbed her from behind to playfully announce her presence. She cheerfully revealed that she had held the camera the entire time, explaining its absence during Mia's search. He explained that she only pretended to possess the camera. This prompted him to lure the other girls away from the room with a fake summons. He elaborated that he orchestrated the distraction so she could safely collect the power strip and secure the evidence. He noted how confusing it must have been for her to find the camera missing and be suddenly summoned only to realize Mia never had the device. He remarked that despite her desperate attempts to appear innocent, her underlying guilt remained obvious. Confronting the group, Tisu singles out her, noting she was the only one who glanced at the power outlet as they were leaving. Holding up a micro SD card, he explains that verifying its contents made the rest of the investigation simple. He reveals they found video evidence of her turning on the hidden device. He adds that the camera was consistently positioned to monitor the luggage rather than the people in the room. Breaking down in tears, Yoonji promises to confess and insists she had no malicious intent, explaining that her belongings were frequently stolen or damaged in the past. She admits she failed to wipe the data because she never expected the device to be discovered, leaving her panicked over why Mia possessed it. Believing Mia possessed the device, she panicked that her entire reputation would be instantly destroyed if the secret recording was exposed. Weeping heavily, she confesses that retrieving the camera became her only thought as her mind went completely blank from panic. The morning's events conclude with Tisu deducing the culprit only intended to film luggage. Yoonji bows deeply in apology to Mia. He reasons that she likely guessed the truth beforehand, explaining why she bypassed the police. She raises a finger to her lips in a hushing gesture. She calmly agrees to trust Yoonji. The group stares in disbelief as she questions their reaction, pointing out that Yoonji already admitted her mistake and took full responsibility. She bursts into tears and asks if Mia is truly okay with this resolution. Covering her face, the weeping girl expresses immense guilt over being forgiven after her actions against Mia. Mia looks down thoughtfully and hesitates before replying. She casually dismisses the incident, explaining she was merely curious about the camera's installation and noting that she still holds all the evidence. Mia's expression suddenly turns menacing as she issues a stern warning against lying. The short-haired girl trembles violently under her intimidating glare. Watching from the sidelines, Tissue and Dabin question if this menacing person is truly the Mia they know. He mused that she was an entirely different person than he had expected. She expressed her sudden gratitude to him as he carried an unconscious girl on his back. He questioned her sudden thanks, and she explained she appreciated his unquestioning help. She admitted she had misunderstood him, having assumed he would ignore her after her previous harshness. She smiled as she looked back at him, acknowledging his unexpected kindness. He stood by the vending machines and reflected on how quietly the commotion at the retreat had ended. They respected her wish for secrecy after Yoonji surrendered the device, and she did the truth with her roommates who sympathized. A short-haired roommate hugged her tightly and tearfully apologized for her previous behavior. She stretched and thanked him again for his quick thinking, prompting him to ask if she would be all right. He asked if she was embarrassed to face the group after the situation that had just unfolded. He wondered if she felt awkward after they had all just seen her mostly undressed during her attempt to prove her innocence. He suggested her reaction was extreme, prompting a flustered Mia to argue that Yoonji's stubbornness had forced her hand. She clarified she was not that kind of girl, leaving him confused. A heavily blushing Mia hastily denies to him that she casually strips in public. He finally grasps the true meaning behind her words and ponders what the consequences would have been if she had been lying. He concludes he would have involved the police, but decides she lacks the temperament for such deception. She cheerfully declares she will simply deal with any future issues as they arise. She states that her only goal is to graduate peacefully without any trouble. Recalling his initial terror at discovering her secret, he is completely baffled by her claim. As they walk together, she happily notes that no one is left to disturb her school life. He immediately questions her bold assumption. He points out that she cannot expect a peaceful life after the massive chaos she just caused. She stops and looks at him in utter confusion. A group of female students suddenly swarms her to loudly praise her hidden cuteness. Meanwhile, other students aggressively demand that he explain the situation. Touching her bare face, Mia finally realizes that she is missing her glasses. Tissue observes that her careless mistake has instantly made her the center of attention. The girls crowd her even closer to compliment her true appearance. They enthusiastically offer to teach her how to apply makeup. A panicked Mia attempts to flee down the hall. The eccentric crowd relentlessly chases after her to demand a complete makeover. The debut trip concludes with a viral photo of an unconscious Mia covered in doodle pranks. Night falls on the second day of the trip, as an unseen speaker enthusiastically agrees to a plan. Yoonji enthusiastically vows to revive the party mood to make up for the earlier incidents. Feeds her a snack she leading performs a wild karaoke onlookers to routine conclude. She is firmly determined to claim shift by the group atmosphere back to a celebratory one. Students silently watching the laments, his ensuing failing plan to cheers, spend Tissue and Hisu alone time with her express relief that the trip is regretting skipping finally work for a trip where a peaceful Tissue end. Surrounded by doting upperclassmen, a blushing Mia endures their endless teasing. A male senior abruptly feeds her a snack, leading onlookers to conclude she is firmly claimed by the group. A frustrated male student silently laments his failing plan to spend alone time with her, regretting skipping work for a trip where Tissue constantly thwarts him. Noticing they are out of alcohol, the frustrated student sees a perfect excuse to finally step out with her. His hopes are immediately crushed when she instead asks Tissue to run the errand for her. He reluctantly accepts the errand while complaining about having to go alone. His departure is suddenly delayed when a loud group of students demands his participation in a drinking trick. The drunken girls giggle at him as he is roped into their antics. Meanwhile, in the girls' dorm, Haeun sleeps soundly with cat whiskers doodled on her face. The girls planned to take a group photo once she was ready and invited Tissue to join them. Tissue opted to step outside alone, reflecting on the unexpected peace of the night following Mia's morning outburst. He pondered her current situation as he walked alone under the night sky. He acknowledged that her significantly changed appearance was only natural after 5 years apart. He questioned her unusual composure and specific knowledge about hidden cameras, despite her previous claims that her past was uneventful. He suspected she had become involved in dangerous activities during those missing years. His train of thought broke as he looked toward the side. he noticed a familiar figure staring up at the night sky. Mia stood silently alone in the moonlight. Tea-Soo called out her name, catching her off guard. She demanded to know how he found her and bolted away. However, she immediately tripped and crashed into the dirt. He knelt to check her injuries as she stammered his name in shock. He asked why she looked like she had seen a ghost. He asked her if she had been running an errand. She confessed she thought his upperclassmen had sent him to bring her back. They discussed the intense personalities of his peers. He maintained that they were actually good people. He admitted his initial worries about getting along with everyone when they first arrived at the pension. He reflected that he never expected a moment like this to happen again, prompting her to point out how familiar their surroundings felt. As she compared the area to their old school's back hill, he internally rejoiced at getting another chance to walk and talk with her. He reminisced about their past after-school library visits where they would raid together until sunset. He considered those vivid times to be some of his most joyous memories from his school days. Back in the present, she observed that he had become much more easygoing than she remembered. He attributed his improved social skills to the various part-time jobs he had worked. Reflecting on their growth, he noted that they were no longer children. Standing outside in the evening air, he suggested they should apologize properly to one another. He pointed out that they should clear the air since they would continue seeing each other at school. She looked down silently as she listened to his reasoning. She explained that she had originally wanted to maintain some distance between them. She added that she thought it was for the best, prompting him to apologize for his past harsh words. She asked if he remembered her telling him to mind his own business for both of their sakes during the school entrance ceremony. She clarified that she had hoped they could remain strangers, admitting the fault was entirely hers rather than his. She pondered the past events at the police station and their school. She admitted that she would not have acted so coldly toward him if their paths had never crossed again. Smiling softly, she formally apologized to Han Tea-Soo. Mia refuses to discuss her difficult past. He silently considers sharing his perspective since they cannot avoid each other until graduation. She tells him that their time together is short. She cryptically adds that she will disappear completely once they graduate. He remains silent as she cheerfully suggests they return to the waiting group. He realizes that digging deeper into her history might unintentionally reopen her old wounds. He fears that pushing her any further might trigger a drastic reaction. He worries she might suddenly vanish like she did in the past. Suddenly, another student calls out his name from the building. A frantic classmate urges them to hurry inside with the alcohol, prompting them to rush back to the impatient crowd. The other girls playfully interrogate her about her absence, while he awkwardly claims he just went for a walk. Tea-Soo and his Sunbi embraced tightly next to their parked car on the drive back from the trip. The two leaned in close, preparing to kiss. He suddenly froze in shock. Haeun also froze as they did a sudden awkward moment. Mia loudly cleared her throat from the back seat, interrupting their rare moment alone. She urged them to start driving, prompting the frustrated Haeun to agree so she could go home. Yoonji chimed in from the back seat. She pointed out that the car's windshield was completely undamaged. He awkwardly apologized for stumbling outside the car, but she quickly reassured him that everything was fine. She complained about being stuck in the car, claiming she would have taken the bus if she had known it wasn't full. She skeptically asked her if she had truly avoided the bus by accident as they sat together in the back. Mia questioned if it was intentional, prompting Haeun to ask if she still harbored feelings for Tea-Soo. She accused her of missing the bus on purpose just to spend more time with him. A flustered Haeun pointed out that she had previously claimed to be completely over him. Finding her reaction adorable, she cooed about how cute the younger girl was. She suddenly hugged a shocked Haeun, playfully asking if she was sulking. She reassured her that she had no lingering feelings and only chose the university by chance, noting her obvious disbelief. She insisted there was nothing to worry about. However, she remained visibly skeptical of her claims. To prove her sincerity, she offered to help her get together with him, causing her to blush heavily. A panicked Haeun questioned whether the older girl was actually serious. She insisted on helping, admitting she had been curious about their relationship for a while. She bluntly asked if he was truly oblivious to her obvious feelings and whether she had ever actually confessed. She nervously explained that he likely only saw her as a student due to their long history. This reasoning caused the older girl to burst into a fit of laughter. She stated that the current matter was settled, but added there was something else they needed to address first. She pointed towards a man and a woman arguing next to a car, questioning what they should do about the situation. She suggested that dealing with the arguing couple should be their immediate priority. A week passed since the start of the semester, and a loud voice calling for an older sister suddenly caught Tisu's attention on campus. Yoonji enthusiastically chased after Mia, who had become a central figure among the freshmen begging to walk together. Visibly annoyed by the constant attention, she flatly asked her to stop following her. She playfully dismissed the rejection, while he silently noted her surprisingly bold personality given her past actions as the culprit. Having completely fallen for her charismatic side, she eagerly suggested that she should try live streaming. She bluntly stated her complete lack of interest in the idea, having fully abandoned her former tacky disguise. He questioned Haeun's sudden fashion upgrade. He doubted her claim that her seniors were styling her every morning. Haeun enthusiastically tackled him from behind. She confirmed his schedule was clear for the evening, prompting him to notice her increased clinginess. She eagerly invited him to view the cherry blossoms. The invitation caught him off guard due to her proactive approach. An idea suddenly struck him, resulting in a hand-drawn sign advertising instant photos for sale. He stood confidently beside his new business sign while a confused Haeun sat on a mat nearby. She nervously asked him to explain what was happening. He started to explain that he had won an instant camera previously. He added that he had refused to sell the camera second-hand due to depreciation. He mentioned that her invitation reminded him to use the forgotten camera for profit, leaving her completely flabbergasted. He thanked her for the business inspiration as they waited for customers, making her unexpectedly happy to be praised. Mia rested her chin on her hand and wondered if it was acceptable to view their current outing positively. She acknowledged to herself that she had always known his true nature since her feelings first began. A local vendor loudly urged the passing crowd to purchase instant photos. Han Tisu agreed to her earlier demand to go see the flowers together once they finished early. She happily reaffirmed her determination to persistently pursue his heart thousands of times if necessary. Her thoughts were interrupted when a short-haired girl arrived and questioned the vendor about his prices. The couple turned in shock as the newcomer cheerfully asked the vendor if she could select her photo partner. A flashback revealed a younger Mia staring quietly ahead. She watched Han Tisu walk away with another girl and finally realized her own romantic feelings for him. Tisu announced he was taking a picture as the group gathered beneath the cherry blossoms. He raised the instant camera to his face and prepared to count down. The camera snapped a Polaroid of two girls posing playfully under the trees. More photos printed out to reveal close-up shots of the girls smiling. The instant film captured several candid and joyful expressions from the group. A final Polaroid captured all four girls huddled together in a cheerful group photo. Dabin stared at the printed photos in awe and praised Tisu for his photography skills. She asked if he had studied photography, but he humbly credited the models for the good pictures. She boldly asked if he was flirting with her, causing Mia to freeze in shock. She suggested they find a private spot to take a photo together. She recalled his reluctance to take pictures in public while Haeun watched them in surprise. She is suddenly startled and interrupted while she was speaking. Mia suddenly threw her arm around her to interrupt the conversation. She mentioned craving milk tea and cake, demanding her fulfill a past promise to treat her. She tried to excuse herself by claiming she was busy, but Mia persistently reminded her of their agreement. Staring intensely, she demanded the treat right that second. Defeated by the pressure, she groaned and yielded. She yields to the demand while Tisu and Haeun watch from the background. Haeun watched in confusion as the two girls walked away together. Glancing back, Mia winked and advised her to be confident and fearless. Overcome with emotion, she teared up in deep gratitude toward her. Clutching her chest, she hyped herself up to persist despite her nerves. Gathering her confidence, she prepared to call out to the man. He turned to acknowledge her when she called out to him. She nervously asked him if they could use the rest of the film for photos of just the two of them. Suddenly, a young woman smiled brightly and announced she had found them. She eagerly waved and called out their names, catching them off guard. She explained she had brought their entire department for photos. He agreed to accommodate everyone, much to her surprise. She quietly lamented the interruption. The three of them posed for a commemorative photo. 𝒟𝐼 suddenly paused, his attention caught by something unexpected. The following evening, 𝒟𝐼 walked home from his part-time job while checking his phone. He unexpectedly spotted 𝒟𝐼 taking pictures of the illuminated cherry blossom trees. He questioned why she was visiting a famous couple's destination and briefly debated taking another route. He hesitated to leave after noticing she had put significantly more effort into her appearance than usual. She posed for a selfie, prompting him to wonder if she was on a date. He observed her aggressively taking photos in the park. Seeing her wild posing, he quickly concluded she was not on a date. As the semester progressed, he was surprised to find she acted like a model student. He overheard his classmates praising her for her impressive and feisty charm. He grew irritated noticing other students constantly stealing glances at her. He realized the most significant change was that she no longer avoided him. She cheerfully greeted him when they passed each other on campus. She suggested they stop being awkward since they would be seeing each other frequently. She admitted she had been overly conscious of him and wished they had just laughed it off casually. He observed a smiling woman and reflected on her unpredictable nature. He concluded that there was no longer any need for further intervention. He reasoned that he did not have to be the one to initiate contact and acknowledge her presence. Recalling multiple exhausting encounters with her, he decided to ignore the situation entirely and return home to farm. He suddenly paused upon noticing two unknown men approaching and speaking to her. Watching the interaction, he questioned whether the two men were actually her friends. She informed the men that she already had company and suggested they leave, prompting him to realize they were strangers. Ignoring her clear rejection, one of the men insisted they all go to a nearby bar for drinks. He almost called out her name in the heat of the moment. However, he stopped himself to debate if he actually needed to intervene in her business. He hesitated further by recalling her recent claim that she was already there with someone else. While he worried that intervening might complicate things, 𝒟𝐼 suddenly grabbed his arm and announced him as her companion. 𝒟𝐼 looked confused as 𝒟𝐼 pointed at him and announced that they were in a budding relationship. She firmly asked the onlookers not to disturb them. She grabbed his arm tightly as someone loudly questioned her bold claim. 𝒟𝐼 calmly reiterated that she was currently in a relationship with 𝒟𝐼. She clung to 𝒟𝐼's arm and asked the others not to interrupt them, prompting another loud shout of disbelief. 𝒟𝐼's heart pounded as he internally questioned what 𝒟𝐼 was trying to achieve. 𝒟𝐼 desperately winked at 𝒟𝐼 to play along and promised to owe him a favor. The two blonde onlookers asked if they were actually serious. 𝒟𝐼 nervously called her name, prompting 𝒟𝐼 to cheerfully reply with his full name. Go Dong-soo asked in absolute shock if 𝒟𝐼 was truly in a relationship with a girl. 𝒟𝐼 recognized the two men as his senior co-workers from his part-time job, just as they erupted in another shout of disbelief. Haeun, holding two ice cream cones, looked confused as an unseen person complained that her presence always caused a mess. Haeun spotted a distant commotion under the cherry blossoms and recognized 𝒟𝐼 and 𝒟𝐼 struggling among a group of guys. A blonde guy held up his phone camera and instructed 𝒟𝐼 and 𝒟𝐼 to get closer. Through the phone screen, the blonde guy teased them about their budding relationship, while 𝒟𝐼 frantically insisted it was a huge misunderstanding. 𝒟𝐼 angrily clarified that 𝒟𝐼 was merely a school acquaintance. However, the blonde guy ignored her protests and physically shoved them closer together. 𝒟𝐼 suddenly grabbed 𝒟𝐼 and pulled her in toward him. The sudden physical contact caused 𝒟𝐼 to freeze in surprise. 𝒟𝐼 calmly told 𝒟𝐼 that her resistance was useless. He explained that the persistent guys would interpret anything as romantic, suggesting that taking a few quick photos would resolve the situation faster. Blushing, 𝒟𝐼 reluctantly agreed to the photos, while pretending she was doing him a favor, prompting 𝒟𝐼 to question her condescending tone. Dabin quickly clarified that she was just joking while smiling at him. Her sudden change in demeanor left 𝒟𝐼 confused as they continued walking together under the blossoms. Dabin explained she had no special reason for the photos other than using them to escape the area, and he quietly agreed that he understood. She held up her phone and began a countdown to take their picture. The camera flashed, capturing a photo of them standing arm in arm under the cherry trees. Back at Seohan University, spring romance filled the air as 𝒟𝐼 walked silently through the lively campus hallway. He reached out and opened the door to the media department student council room. Inside, a group of despondent male students sat huddled together in the dark in stark contrast to the lively campus outside. He asked why they were hiding indoors, and the students admitted they had nowhere else to go. One student desperately asked him to introduce them to girls. A female senior explained that she avoided department events because older students constantly tried to force romantic connections. She noted that this overeager behavior inevitably led to an increase in harassment reports. Hisu Sunbi aggressively crushed a paper in her hand while decreeing a temporary ban on all official department drinking parties. She angrily reprimanded her juniors to maintain self-restraint despite the spring fever. He noted it had been a long time since she was this furious. He entered the department room to find his classmates sobbing over their ruined spring dating plans. A gloomy atmosphere swept through the frustrated students. He questioned if dating had to happen specifically in spring, prompting his classmates to loudly declare him a dating dead end. He admitted to himself that he was interested in dating and already kept someone specific in his heart. He pictured Haeun smiling brightly under the blooming trees. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a vivid memory of Cha-mia. He pictured her standing among the cherry blossoms holding a photograph. He gasped as his face flushed red, wondering why he was suddenly thinking about her instead of Haeun. He silently wondered if his distraction was caused by her previously grabbing his arm earlier that day. He recalled her promising to repay him for a recent favor and pondered exactly how she intended to fulfill it. When a classmate asked if he was actually dating her, he tiredly denied the persistent rumor once again. Meanwhile, Haeun sat alone in her dark bedroom while a classmate back at school cryptically brought up her name. A voice noted that a guy from another department had recently confessed his feelings while looking at a photograph of Tisu and her. She smiled fondly at the printed photograph. Her roommate Park Yoon sneaked up behind her and teased her about wearing out the picture of her husband. She yelled out a furious denial to the kiss accusation while Park Yoon asked how many suitors' confessions she had rejected so far. Park Yoon advised Haeun to give the other guys a chance instead of pining for her senior. She fiercely declared that no one was better than Tisu. She firmly reiterated her unwavering devotion, leading Park Yoon to note exasperatedly that she was completely blinded by love. She eagerly offered to recount her childhood origin story, with him prompting her to frantically refuse. She then changed the subject by asking how Haeun felt about the other girl. She displayed Shin Dabin's social media page on her phone and pointed out that she had been openly flirting with him like a sly fox. Haeun calmly dismissed the concern, stating she was perfectly fine with her, while Park Yoon stared back in surprise at her unexpectedly relaxed attitude. She confidently explained that he had shown zero interest in her, noting they had barely made eye contact. She looked deeply disturbed by her obsessive tracking of his every interaction. The brown-haired girl noted that he obsessively focused on a single thing once he got hooked. She laughed as she did this personality trait of his with a friend. An orange-haired girl stared at a photograph and called him a fool. She then admitted her true concern lay elsewhere. Mia smiled brightly. The brown-haired girl recounted a story about his predictable habits. He suddenly arrived and perfectly predicted the snack location they were discussing. The two girls enthusiastically high-fived as he stood awkwardly behind them. The girls warmly greeted him while he asked why he was the topic of their conversation. A voice answered a professor over the phone outside the university building. Mia confirmed over the phone that she had almost finished preparing the materials. She looked at her phone while Tisu watched her. He stared at her, deeply bothered by a lingering thought. She asked why he kept glancing at her, prompting him to nervously wonder if his staring was obvious. She smirked and asked if he was worried she had badmouthed him to their senior. Pointing out his red face, she asked if her guess was right while he mentally panicked over being tested. She reassured him she was not inconsiderate and reminded him of how the senior had helped them previously. Tisu recalled that Mia used to be incredibly shy and struggled with simple conversations. He reflected that her current demeanor felt completely unfamiliar and remembered Haeun mentioning the same thing. She stared in shock, questioning if this confident person was truly the same Mia. She cheerfully declared she would make a graceful exit as the third wheel, leaving him confused. She grabbed her bag and reminded him that she had promised to repay her debt. She abruptly excused herself due to an urgent matter and promised to treat Hisu later. He stood in utter shock at her sudden departure. She cheerfully wished them good luck before departing. He realized in a panic that she was deliberately setting him up with his senior. He nervously watched her while questioning if his ex-girlfriend's matchmaking actions were truly appropriate. She began walking away down the corridor. She rationalized her actions as simply repaying a debt. Hee-soo quietly began typing on her laptop. He stared ahead, wondering in disbelief if being left completely alone with her was a dream. Sitting together in the quiet room, he noted that his highly anticipated moment had arrived far too easily. He internally panicked over his complete lack of mental preparation for a conversation with her. She suddenly announced that she had finished preparing the materials, thoroughly startling the unprepared him. He panicked, internally wondering if his senior was going to leave immediately and what he should say to her. She leaned in with a warm expression and asked him if he had eaten yet. A startled Tissue fumbled his words before clarifying his question to ask if she had eaten dinner. She replied that she had not eaten yet, visibly thrilled by his invitation. While they walked down the street eating crepes, she happily noted her need for a post-work sugar boost. After he admitted his ignorance of the local crepe shop, she explained that treating the crowded store as a secret made it feel special. Her positive attitude only deepened his admiration for her. She quickly clarified that this snack outing was entirely separate from the meal she owed him. He smiled, realizing that just being by her side gave him energy. As they continued their walk, Tissue reflected that his feelings for Hee-soo stemmed from these small, special moments. He remembered how she had assisted him with housing and jobs during his transition to living independently. Ultimately, as they concluded that her bright smile had been his continued their walk greatest, Tissue's source of support, intended to confess upon his discharge, but he remembered how she had reasoned that he had been assisted him too busy housing and jobs tutoring during Haeun. He continued making internal excuses for the current year while recalling Mia aggressively demanding that he pretend not to know her. She asked if something was wrong, prompting him to claim something was merely in his eye. He then abruptly asked what she had wanted to tell him. He explained that Mia had mentioned she wanted to tell him something. She reacted with sudden flustered shock at the statement. He admitted he had been waiting for her to speak and assumed she had simply forgotten. He then internally cursed Mia for her unnecessary meddling. She nervously swallowed while internally confirming there was only one thing she wanted to tell him. She imagined herself bluntly confessing her romantic feelings to her senior right on the sidewalk. In her imagination, she continued the bold confession while he stared back in blushing shock. She suddenly covered her mouth in reality while becoming overwhelmed by her internal thoughts. She internally admitted she lacked the courage to actually voice the confession out loud. She tilted her head thoughtfully as she internally worried that she was merely misunderstanding his general kindness. He nervously imagined her reacting with awkward dismissal if he confessed his feelings. She asked when they should have their planned meal. Fighting his internal panic, he suggested eating meat after midterms, and she excitedly agreed. He internally resolved to be careful and not rush his advances. He watched her eat and reflected that she was originally supposed to graduate that year. He considered her delayed graduation a final chance from fate. His train of thought was interrupted when she suddenly called his name. She asked for a bite of his crepe, causing him to blush profusely. As she took a bite, he silently planned to treat Mia to a meal next time. Night fell over the local apartment buildings. He was overcome with a sense of pure, unbridled joy. A passing child pointed out his joyful skipping, prompting her mother to quickly tell her not to stare. Concluding his successful date, Tissue walked home while deciding what food to bring back for Mia. He stood on the street behind a crouching her. He stared in confusion at the sight. She remained huddled on the ground with her face hidden against her coat. Approaching carefully, he asked if the girl was her. She peeked out from her coat to look back at him. He noted internally that she was waiting there again. Looking up with a flushed face, she softly asked if he had arrived. Meanwhile, crowds gathered along the brightly lit university pub street. Inside a pub, Dabin angrily questioned why Han Tissue resisted her charm. Her friends sat with her and mocked her for her persistence. She frustratingly recalled her many failed attempts to approach him, noting how he constantly rushed off to work. He ignored her messages and even sold the classroom seat next to him. He declined a day off, explaining he attended school without his parents' financial support. He added that he barely got by despite working 7 days a week, leaving her stunned by the rejection. Slamming the table at a bar, she angrily complained that his excuse about needing to earn tuition fees was entirely unconvincing. She cried that no one had ever treated her that way before. This prompted Park Yoon to warn her against falling for such a cliché manga trope. A brown-haired girl drinking beer recalled their upperclassman's warning that the young man was decent-looking but possessed a seriously flawed personality. The gray-haired girl deduced that such a warning usually indicated serious trouble, arguing that the upperclassman would not have complimented his looks if she only intended to ward them off. The blonde girl remained baffled by his lack of interest. She wondered aloud if he was already dating their senior Haeun. The brown-haired girl expressed doubt about that relationship. She hinted with a smile that she had witnessed something interesting a few days prior. Jisoo looked down nervously at a black-haired girl. She was sleeping soundly in his bed. Standing over the sleeping girl in his room, Jisoo quietly wondered to himself what he was supposed to do next. 𝒩𝒂ℰ slept soundly in bed, murmuring softly. He nervously reasoned that anyone would misunderstand the situation, but insisted it was unavoidable, questioning how he could leave her sleeping right in front of the door. In a flashback, a drunk 𝒩𝒂ℰ crouched outside his door and refused to go inside, explaining that she had been drinking while watching a movie in her room. Heavily, she chugging creed that the multiple cockroach had bottles of disappeared alcohol into her bed and alone in her room. Appeared on her the floor. Heavily, she chugging creed that the multiple cockroach had bottles of disappeared alcohol into her bed and alone in her room, stubbornly declared she would sleep in the hallway, while Jisoo reacted in complete disbelief. Jisoo managed to drag the passed-out 𝒩𝒂ℰ to her own doorstep, desperately yelling at her to wake up and enter her passcode. Back in the present, he hung up his clothes while wondering how much she had drunk and felt relieved he found her before anything bad happened. Looking down at the sleeping her, he silently wondered why she had changed so much and what she had been through. He examined a large jacket, agreeing with Haeun's past remark that she had grown significantly and now looked like a completely different person. Mia playfully grabbed a bespectacled girl's collar, noting she used to be as short as Haeun, and asking how she grew so tall. Jisoo grabbed a black jacket from a hanger as his thoughts shifted to a more pressing matter. The nervous senior internally questioned what Mia was trying to accomplish. She lounged casually on a bed while he wondered why she was so eager to set him up with other people. He recalled how she had previously tried to push him towards Haeun and now another classmate. While defensively spraying the room, he asked if she disliked him so much that she deliberately tried to push him away. He remembered a past moment when she affectionately embraced him from behind, questioning her past motives if she truly harbored dislike for him. Reflecting on their walk together, he wondered if her true feelings actually contradicted her current dismissive behavior. He briefly pondered if she still harbored feelings for him. However, he quickly dismissed the idea, reasoning she wouldn't actively push him away if she did. Gazing up at the night sky, Mia silently pondered how things would be if they had never reunited. Haeun realized he felt stuck in the past and entirely alone in his lingering feelings. Remembering a smiling Mia from the past, she wondered if it was time for him to let go. He recalled holding the Mia he used to like tightly against a doorway. The two had an intimate, quiet kiss in his memory. He acknowledged that the girl he held was the Mia he truly loved back then. Haeun stood fully clothed under the stream of a shower with his head bowed. Resolving to move on, Jisoo decided he would treat her strictly as just another junior going forward. Observing the current Mia, he concluded he had been too conscious of her and felt defeated for being the only one who still cared. The young man pulled his hood down, reminding himself that he had someone much more important to focus on. He thought of Jisoo Sunbi, the woman who had completely changed his rigid perspective on dating. His classmates gossiped about her notorious reputation for rejecting over 100 suitors, dubbing her the untouchable fortress of their department. Pushing open the door, he firmly resolved to stop caring if his crush no longer cared about him. His train of thought abruptly derailed the moment he saw the dark-haired girl sleeping soundly in his bed. He felt frustrated by her carefree slumber after she had turned his feelings completely upside down. Looking at her, he stubbornly decided to stay up gaming instead. 𝒩𝒂ℰ desperately covered her flushed face, struggling to suppress her mounting panic and racing thoughts. Peeking around the corner, he briefly considered tossing her outside. He eventually forced himself to simply endure the situation. He decided to let her stay to avoid any potential trouble, reasoning that she would wake up in a few hours at the latest anyway. She slept peacefully on the bed with her shirt slightly pulled up, exposing her midriff. He covered his mouth as his face flushed red and his heart pounded uncontrollably at the sight. He retreated to the kitchen, clutching his chest and questioning why his heart had suddenly skipped a beat after he had already cooled down. He rationalized that he had seen her exposed stomach before and firmly decided not to care about her actions. His resolve quickly shattered when a sudden rustling noise from the other room startled him. Having kicked her out into the hallway to calm his nerves, he draped a blanket over her huddled figure as a courtesy, since she had told him not to meddle in her business. A familiar voice suddenly called out his name from down the hall. He froze stiff while still holding onto the blanket wrapped 𝒩𝒲ℏ. He sweated nervously as he silently recognized the voice of his upperclassman. Hisu approached and asked what he was doing out there as 𝒩𝒲ℏ peeked out from her blanket. The night dragged on silently outside the apartment complex. She groggily opened her eyes and murmured in confusion as she slowly regained consciousness. She sat up in the hallway, wrapped in her blanket, looking completely bewildered. She stared blankly upon realizing she was sitting on the floor right next to Tisu. He turned to her with tears streaming down his face and asked if she had enjoyed a nice dream. Haeun woke up, startled in the hallway, wrapped in a blanket, and asked him why he was crying. As the startled girl clutched the blanket, she looked up at the young man. He tearfully agreed with her previous statement that they should keep their distance from each other. Stepping back into his apartment, he reached for the handle. He coldly stated that he would no longer care about her well-being and shut the door. Left alone in the hallway, the confused Haeun scratched her head. She wondered what he meant by his sudden harsh words. Inside, he leaned against the closed door in tears, lamenting that nothing ever went right when she was involved. Time skipped forward to late March with a view of the campus buildings under a bright sky. Various club recruitment posters were displayed all across the campus bulletin boards. While wandering the campus uncertain about joining a club, Tisu suddenly spotted a familiar face nearby. He was surprised to see the black-haired girl, 𝒩𝒲ℏ, standing just a short distance away. She looked back at him, seemingly startled to have run into him on campus. He approached her and pointed out that they had run into each other once again. He jokingly teased his junior about ruining his previous romantic setup. His teasing prompted her to frustratedly ask if he would ever stop bringing up the incident. Startled by his brown-haired sunbee, he froze as Haeun casually asked what he was doing standing out there. She cheerfully explained that her family had sent over far more food than she and her roommate could possibly eat. Meanwhile, 𝒩𝒲ℏ remained sleeping soundly inside his apartment, completely hidden from view. Offering to the surplus with him, she remained completely unaware of the girl currently inside his room. Misinterpreting the situation as a romantic encounter, the sunbee apologized for intruding and promised to call ahead next time. She completely ignored Han Tisu and 𝒩𝒲ℏ's desperate attempts to explain the misunderstanding. He asked her about her insomnia. She confessed she had been struggling to sleep lately and had resorted to drinking alone before bed. Apologizing for the trouble, she admitted she had never blacked out before and had zero memory of what transpired in his room. Still hazy on the details, she groggily confirmed his identity as she tried to piece the night back together. Blushing furiously, she hurled an object directly at his face when he accused her of feigning amnesia to avoid paying him, angrily demanding he charge her every last cent. Shin Dabin aggressively threatened to involve a lawyer if he ever spoke of the incident to anyone. This led him to quietly resolve to maintain a strict distance from her in the future. He looked back in mild confusion as an unknown voice suddenly interrupted, asking her why she was hunting instead of handing out flyers. The short-haired girl hugged her from behind and greeted him, though he struggled to remember her name. He asked about the flyers they were holding and wondered if they had taken up a part-time job. The short-haired girl explained that Dabin was starting a new club to fully experience university life. She extended an open invitation for him to join their new club. He examined their game dev club flyer and pointed out its lack of contact information. The girls admitted the missing details were intentional since their core members were already gathered. The short-haired girl insisted he join to repay a past favor. However, 𝒩𝒲ℏ aggressively told him to stay away. He mentally dismissed the offer because he rarely participated in his own department's activities. He silently observed them as Cha-Mia gently picked a stray leaf out of her friend's hair. The short-haired girl smiled warmly in response, showing how close the two had become since the mountain incident. He wondered to himself if his sudden attentiveness meant he was starting to become conscious of her. He reflected on her growth, feeling as though she had become an entirely different person. He quickly dismissed the thought, reasoning that her face and voice remained exactly the same. He realized there was one specific method to verify her true identity and quietly opened a door to peek inside. Mia catches Jisoo staring at her while she sits alone in the room. She asks if he was stalking her, prompting his immediate and nervous denial. He offers to wait in the hallway, but she insists he enter because his lurking is distracting. Stepping inside, he considers a straightforward way to confirm if she is the real her. He considers checking her chest size, but is abruptly interrupted by her sharp cough. He nervously changes the subject by noting her lack of dark circles despite her insomnia. She bluntly explains to him that she simply uses makeup to hide the signs of exhaustion. She closes her book and firmly assures him that her sleeplessness has nothing to do with him. She clarifies that her sleep schedule is merely messed up and that he is not the cause of her insomnia. He casually accepted this, explaining he only thought she was bothered because he played games all night. She stared back at him in complete confusion. He reminded her of the Gukbap story, causing her to blush in sudden realization. A blonde girl suddenly burst into the room, pointing at her and asking if she was the fallen power angel. She stared intently at her, revealing that she was the guild master of the 5th ranked guild on their server. A flashback showed her game avatar expressing deep gratitude to her master. The avatar thanked her master for taking her in as a newbie and leading her through the game. She recalled the journey of her master leading their group all the way to the top 5 rankings. Back in reality, she nostalgically recalled how amazing her master was. Hae-eun passionately resolved to discover her master's true identity if they ever met in person. Staring warmly at her, she firmly concluded that she was her master. A voice abruptly demanded to know what she had just said about the name Fallen. Someone firmly grasped and turned the doorknob to enter the Media Studies Department student council room. She flinched in absolute shock, internally panicking as she frantically questioned the sudden turn of events. The small masked figure asked if she was the fallen power angel, causing her to wonder if this strange entity was truly her master. Standing alone in the hallway, the blonde girl found it strange that Mia would associate with Han Jisoo. She then remembered they were supposed to be heading to the police station. She realized she had completely forgotten the warning to not discuss guild matters at school due to their numerous enemies. Yoonji claimed that Mia rather than Hae-eun was the one currently dating, insisting she had seen them taking photos together arm in arm at the park. She added that the couple had secretly slipped away during a recent retreat and frequently spent time together around the school. Imagining her and Han Jisoo acting affectionately as a secret couple, the horrified girl questioned if they were truly in a romantic relationship. Hae-eun grabbed the door handle and entered lecture room 3. Inside, the dark-haired girl mentioned she was about to go looking for her due to unanswered calls as she approached hesitantly. She began to ask her friend how she would react if her respected master was dating a jerk. Frantically grabbing her friend's shoulders, she received a confused reply asking if she was referring to a game. Shaking her friend violently, she clarified she was talking about Han Jisoo and Mia going on a date. Overwhelmed with panic, she tearfully begged for advice on whether she should support their relationship. Jisoo clutched his protein powder and asked who was involved in the rumor. The reddish-brown-haired girl approached him while her friends watched from a distance in confusion. He outside squeezed the container and asked for the story in detail as the reddish-brown-haired girl leaned in closely to listen. Intercom. Asked why she was there, and she explained that she person came to chat with repeatedly Mia, but the doorbell was pressed the button in quick succession, waiting for someone to unresponsive answer. Outside, she wondered if she was actively casually greeted him and avoiding him because she asked feared he if he was would home. Asked why she was there and he pressed the intercom himself to test if it was actually broken. Inside the apartment, he asked who started the ridiculous rumor that he was dating her. She asked for his confirmation, which he quickly provided by dismissing the claim. He reminded her that she had heard Mia publicly declare they were completely finished with each other, which she admitted she had witnessed, despite her lingering hesitation. He questioned her true intentions after she claimed she merely wanted to check if Mia knew about the circulating rumor. She innocently deflected his suspicion while quietly sipping her drink. He asked why she was visiting during a time she usually had other commitments, so she explained that a cancelled tutoring session left her with free time. She bashfully asked him if he had 3 hours of free time. She then asked if he would like to go for a walk together. Jisoo apologized and explained that he was currently busy working on a pile of assignments. Haeyoon quickly accepted his excuse. She asked if she could wait in his room until he finished, to which he agreed. She let out a heavy sigh. He acknowledged to himself that he was well aware of her romantic feelings for him. He admitted that the problem was he still viewed her as an 11-year-old girl demanding rice cake skewers. He wondered if knowing her since childhood made him incapable of seeing her as anything other than a kid. She mentioned her brothers were visiting next week to treat her to meet. This prompted him to immediately claim he was busy before she even specified the day. She dropped the subject while he nervously joked that accepting freebies could cause hair loss. He thought about her 2 older brothers and noted that they had always intensely disliked him. He recalled them threatening to shave his head if he flirted with her or implied she wasn't cute. He noted that as national athletes, any interest in her would guarantee his hair loss. He paused in deep thought as a sudden realization hit him. Watching her sit nearby, he reflected on how drastically she had changed since their school days. He acknowledged that her height, physique, and makeup made her seem like a completely different person. Realized these and changes were minor, Mia briefly compared to the rested on the transformation of kitchen cha floor before her Mia. Dishes he wondered if she was actively avoiding him because she feared he would realize she was an entirely different person. He briefly speculated whether she might have a secret twin sister. Both he and Haeyoon, he easily recognized her. Avoiding him because she feared he would also realize she was in reason she could not be an entirely imposter because she different person, remembered specific details about a middle school game console incident. He recalled that during their very first meeting, she already possessed accurate knowledge about his family's background. He questioned the lingering sense of discrepancy he felt around her, specifically recalling a moment when she claimed she disliked coffee. She asked him if he disliked coffee. He walked alongside her in quiet reflection. He reminisced about a woman from his past. He recalled their memories of visiting the schools back hill together. He reflected on their strong connection but quickly decided he no longer needed it. Jisoo wondered if he was overthinking the situation or secretly hoping she was someone else. Haeyoon stared closely at him, pulling him abruptly back to reality. He was startled to find her face so near his own. She pointed out his flushed face while he grew alarmed by her sudden proximity. Noticing his restlessness, she leaned over the desk and pressed her hand against his forehead to check for a fever. She asked if he felt dizzy after finding no fever. The intimate gesture caused his heart to race. He questioned if his racing heart was simply a reaction to her sudden physical closeness. She suddenly grew flustered and told herself to pause. Realizing she was casually touching him, a blushing Haeyoon quickly concluded he did not have a cold. She recalled a friend's past advice urging her to forcefully create a romantic opportunity. She questioned why that specific memory had suddenly surfaced. Staring at him, she wondered if she viewed their current situation as a chance. She also wondered if she was merely feeling anxious about the physical proximity. In a flashback, she rejected a friend's offer to help her get together with him. She confidently stated that she would win him over with her own strength. Returning to the present, she felt frustrated with herself for failing to act on those bold words. He paused his typing and asked her to wait a second. She leaned over him and instructed him to stay still. Suddenly, the doorbell abruptly rang through the apartment. A visitor pressed the buzzer and called out for him. Inside the room, they froze in shock at the unexpected voice. A dark-haired woman stood outside the apartment and wondered aloud if he was not home. Mia rang the doorbell and wondered if the resident was away. His mouth was suddenly covered as he thought the situation was strange. She tackled him into a chair and muffled his mouth, mentioning that she had heard keyboard sounds. Mia held a misdelivered package and resolved to explain that she had opened it by mistake. She walked away from the apartment, deciding to explain the situation at school the next day. Haeyoon sighed in relief at the sudden surprise. She then asked Jisoo if he was all right. He lay foaming at the mouth from suffocation, concluding that her extreme behavior was the final reason to avoid her. A year prior, Hae-eun had violently shaken a distressed Tsu, leading others to criticize him for not understanding her feelings. A friend insisted over drinks that he must endure her for the sake of mankind because she was too much to handle. She learned early on that strength equated to justice, while growing up in a ruthless environment where her older brothers fought fiercely over food. His friends noted how difficult it was for her to suppress her aggressive nature as she effortlessly snapped a metal chopstick in half at the dinner table. His friends praised him and the normally wild Hae-eun as a perfect match, prompting him to internally dismiss their comments as mere gossip. He likened himself to a mere ant terrified by the prospect of dining with others. He felt overwhelmed when thinking of her massive presence and overwhelming affection, which he likened to a giant elephant. A panicked and tearful Hae-eun screamed for him to stay alive. He acknowledged her underlying kindness even while enduring her violent shaking as she continued to scream his name. A battered and exhausted Tsu reflected on how viscerally terrifying her dormant instincts could be whenever they surfaced. Time quickly advanced to mid-April at the university, as Sora frustratedly complained about the impending midterm exams inside the game dev club. Another club member clarified that the real source of their collective headache was actually Mia's sudden return. Dabin questioned why she was suddenly relevant to their conversation. She responded by mentioning a circulating rumor involving her and Han Tsu. She asked if the two were dating just as Hae-eun unexpectedly entered the room, severely startling her. She cheerfully greeted her, who looked around in confusion and wondered where Dabin had suddenly disappeared to. They stared in confusion at her, who was nervously cowering on the couch while hiding behind a pillow. She quickly whispered to her that Mia was the guild master and had something secretive going on with him. She noted that she looked extremely tired and asked if she had stayed up all night, which she nervously admitted. She suddenly interjected to ask her if she had stayed up all night on a date with him. Dabin revealed that she had seen Hae-eun and Tsu on a date at the park. She recalled a specific memory of seeing the couple together. She pressed her further about her frequent meetings with him. She leaned in close and bluntly asked if they were secretly dating. Hae-eun hesitated nervously as she began to explain the true nature of her relationship with him. Dabin froze in shock as she mentally processed her relationship with him. Water ran steadily inside the women's restroom. She smiled softly to herself. Hae-eun sternly told her never to joke about such things again. Dabin silently noted her obvious disdain for him. She smiled confidently, deducing that Hae-eun's lack of romantic interest meant she still had a chance. Stepping out of the bathroom, she paused for a brief moment. She then questioned aloud what exactly she had a chance at. She suddenly panicked as she realized the troubling implications of Hae-eun not being involved with him. Birds flew over the school building as she fell into complete confusion. Walking down the hallway, Hae-eun pondered the rumors. She tried to convince herself she rarely spent time with him. Memories of numerous intimate encounters with him flooded her mind, making her realize they were actually together quite frequently. Mia reflected that exhausting things had constantly happened ever since she met Han Tsu. She wondered where things had gone wrong while recalling a past encounter with him outside a building. Her memory shifted to a moment when she cheerfully hugged him from behind. Back in the present, she chastised herself for her carelessness after discovering he lived nearby. He suddenly noticed her and called out her name, startling her out of her thoughts. He asked why she looked so surprised and questioned her plain clothes. She grew flustered by his observation and nervously blamed her disheveled appearance on exam season. She defensively demanded to know why he cared about her fashion choices. She turned away from him, insisting that her style was her own choice. Tsu explained that her appearance reminded him of the girl he used to know and complimented the look. Hae-eun stared back at him in stunned, blushing silence. He waved goodbye and wished her luck on her exams, leaving her standing speechless. She awkwardly wished him well and waved as he walked away. She immediately questioned her actions and reflected that her life had been chaotic since meeting him. She admitted that unexpectedly running into him at the university was completely unscripted. She added that their repeated encounters and constant bickering were entirely unintended. Tsu forced the faulty elevator doors open and asked if she was all right while she lamented getting trapped together. He presses the elevator's emergency button to report their situation. He confirms they are near 𝒩𝒂Ⅎ University and reports that help should arrive in 20 minutes. He relays the expected wait time to Hae-eun, noting a possible delay due to rush hour traffic. Noticing her silence, he asks if she is nervous about being trapped alone with him in the elevator. Pointing to the security camera, he reassures her that they are being monitored, though she quietly confirms she already knew. She questions his calmness during the malfunction as she admits to being terrified, while he casually blames the building's cheap rent for the issue. Shivering with terror, she asks if their current situation is turning into a typical horror movie cliché. He casually listed several common horror tropes. He playfully offered to tell her a scary story, but she aggressively forbade him from doing so. She explained that a childhood acquaintance had traumatized her with horror media, comparing the experience to being tricked by a harmful item in a game. Expressing her deep aversion to the supernatural, she stated that she could not understand why people willingly paid to watch terrifying content. Plunged into darkness, she shrieked that it was a ghost while he desperately pleaded with her to calm down. In the darkness, he held her close as she confusedly asked what was happening. Using his phone flashlight, he told her to calm down and explained that it was just a temporary power outage. As she rested against him, he questioned her sudden jumpiness, noting she usually acted like she wasn't afraid of anything. The elevator lights flickered back on as he warned her that freaking out and getting hurt was more dangerous. Jisoo reassured her that everything was fine and told her to stop worrying. He suddenly blushed deeply in surprise and let out a startled sound. Jumping back defensively, he frantically insisted that it was a misunderstanding and he was only trying to calm her down. With a deeply flushed face, Hae-eun yelled back that she already knew and he did not need to say it. He awkwardly rubbed his ear and quietly agreed that he knew. And extremely embarrassed, Hae-eun added that she knew without him having to tell her. He wished they had a towel and told the shivering girl to endure the cold. Huddled on the elevator floor under his jacket, she quietly agreed. Checking his phone, he noticed her staring and asked if she had something to say. She hesitantly admitted her curiosity, but he complained about his game disconnecting, prompting her to question his current priorities. Jisoo defended his mobile gaming by stating that maximizing farming efficiency was crucial to cover his living expenses. Mia directly asked why he constantly talked about money. After she assured him she wasn't picking a fight, she questioned why he worked part-time when his family was supposedly wealthy. She also asked if his gaming was risky considering how strict his parents used to be. He retorted by asking why she was prying into his affairs when she avoided talking about her own, prompting a quick apology from her. He then bluntly stated that he had cut ties with his family, leaving her completely stunned. He casually mentioned that he had left home about 4 years ago, prompting her to hesitantly ask if he had run away. She vividly recalled how him had immediately asked her for money when they had first encountered each other. She pictured him earning his living expenses through various grueling part-time jobs. She imagined him studying tirelessly to keep up with his academic responsibilities. She also pictured him biking home late at night after long, exhausting shifts. She stated that the Jisoo she knew would never have done such things, while he modestly explained that Jisoo Sunbi had helped him significantly after his military discharge. She remembered that his family was locally renowned for their massive wealth, living in a picture-perfect mansion entirely managed by servants. She silently compared his luxurious past to the shabby, unremarkable life she herself had endured in a small, single-room rental house. She guiltily admitted that she had complained excessively when they reunited, unfairly berating him for being a spoiled rich guy. Mia tearfully confessed her previous assumption that he was just a snob messing with her on purpose, causing Jisoo to smile and admit he actually had harbored some of those feelings. She reassured him not to worry about life's unpredictability while internally reflecting that she had once viewed him as a fragile greenhouse flower. He confessed that he had wanted to talk to her more in the past, but had not known how to keep her around. He revealed his hope that involving money might bring them together again. She realized the truth behind his actions and felt her internal guilt deepen while telling him not to worry since she was also at fault. Hugging her knees, she quietly apologized and dreaded the moment he would finally discover the truth. Fearing his future resentment, she listened as he awkwardly began to a humorous thought. He confessed that he had once suspected she was a completely different person. This unexpected revelation left her feeling completely shocked as she processed his words. He explained that Haeun's constant remarks about her drastic changes had almost convinced him of the absurd theory, causing her to sweat nervously. Noticing her erratic behavior, he leaned in incredibly close to check on her, sending her into a deeply flushed panic. Startled by his sudden proximity, she scrambled backward. She frantically blamed her bright red face on the room's heat. She abruptly stood up and complained about their 30-minute wait, while he suggested their expected guests were likely stuck in traffic. He offered to check their guest's current location to ease her worries. Sweating profusely, she complained that the room felt excessively hot and stuffy. He inhaled deeply and noted that he felt completely fine. She suddenly lost her balance and pitched forward. She collapsed heavily onto the floor right in front of the startled him. He cried out her name in alarm as she lay unconscious with a feverish flush on her face. Mia remained completely unresponsive on the ground. A narration introduced a young Mia who lived in a village where everyone considered her to be stupid. The narration detailed that she constantly smiled regardless of her situation, even after discovering she was an adopted child. She maintained her smile even when her father's bankruptcy plunged them into debt during 3rd grade, comforted by her mother's reassurances. She stayed positive because her parents never abandoned her amidst the financial hardship. During middle school, Mia continued to face severe daily bullying and the constant vandalism of her desk. Despite the cruelty, she never allowed the smile to leave her face. She endured the difficulties because a kind boy would always check on her when things got tough. This boy continually stepped in to cheer her up and act as her savior. When her mother was hospitalized from overwork during her first year of high school, she forced herself to smile once more. She kept up her happy expression solely because her bedridden mother asked to see her smiling face. The following summer brought further despair as red debt notices rained down on their empty home. She kept smiling even after discovering her father had squandered her mother's hospital funds on alcohol. She maintained her facade upon learning that Tsu, the boy who always comforted her, was the son of her mother's friend. His mother confronted her, stating she was the reason he stayed and cruelly encouraging her to keep ruining his life. The woman threw cash at the crying girl while thanking her for ruining her son's life. The money she had begged for immediately lost all meaning as she collapsed to the floor. Unable to bury her mother and forcibly dragged from her hometown by her father, she completely lost her smile. Bearing a heavy burden, the weeping girl finally grasped her bleak reality. She deduced that her non-existence would have saved him from family conflict and prevented her mother's fatal overwork. Concluding that her father's business would have survived without her, she decided everyone would have been happier if she never existed. Embracing this dark realization, she forced a weeping smile. Believing she had only one option left, she reached with a bloodied hand to power off her cracking phone. Mia suddenly jolted awake in her bed, sitting up with a start. She gasped heavily, trying to catch her breath after the intense nightmare. She woke up in an unfamiliar room and wondered aloud where she was flinching when a voice suddenly noted that she was already awake. A knife glinted in the dim light as Haeun approached, casually suggesting she sleep longer while she shrieked in absolute terror. Haeun looked bewildered and asked why she was screaming out of nowhere. Panting on the bed, she recognized her companion as Haeun, who innocently asked if she had just experienced a nightmare. While a pot simmered on the stove, she explained that she had collapsed in the elevator with Tsu. She added that she was startled to wake up in his bed. Haeun explained that Tsu had urgently asked her to come over. She admitted she had been genuinely worried during her trip there. Mia abruptly paused in realization, her face flushing a deep red. She frantically clutched her oversized blue shirt and shouted in panic that those were not her clothes. Carrying a bowl of food, she calmly stated that she had changed her clothes and asked what else she was expecting. Mia frantically denied having any other expectations. She offered her a warm bowl of food to eat. She quietly noted that it was egg porridge. She confidently guaranteed the food's taste. When Mia asked about him, she explained he went out for medicine and teased her about being disappointed by his absence. She nervously apologized for causing trouble instead of helping. She calmly asked if her presence was making her uncomfortable. She quickly clarified that it was just a misunderstanding. Sitting nearby, she reassured her that she did not mind the situation at all. She pointedly reminded her of her previous claim that she could manage perfectly well without any help. She suggested she consider this care as payback for taking their cherry blossom photos. Surprised, she questioned if that small favor was really enough compensation. Crossing her arms, she firmly instructed her to eat the food before it got cold. She added that sick people should focus entirely on recovering without worrying about anything else. Her considerate words prompted a small smile from her. She playfully threatened to eat the food herself if it was unwanted. Panicking, she immediately grabbed the bowl and insisted she would eat it. She carefully blew on a spoonful of the hot porridge to cool it down. Tasting the food, her eyes widened in surprise. She was in sheer amazement at how delicious it was. She gave a confident thumbs up and reminded her about the taste guarantee. She happily ate the porridge. She commented on its taste with a bright smile. She suddenly asked her where she had learned the recipe. She looked back in confusion and questioned her. Tea-soo approached a local pharmacy at night. Inside the pharmacy, Tea-soo asked the pharmacist for a fever reducer for somebody else. He clarified that he was buying the medicine for a girl he knew. After explaining the girl had insomnia, he stood waiting at the pharmacy counter. He internally regretted running away prematurely instead of staying to help the girl. He realized he could have confirmed the girl's true identity by checking for a specific scar on her chest. Tea-soo remarked to Mia that bringing up her scar was incredibly random and likened it to an emotional wound. He clarified he meant a physical childhood scar and asked why she mentioned it out of nowhere, causing her to hesitate nervously. He explained that sharing secrets made them feel like a real couple, prompting him to think of ways to reciprocate. She coyly suggested that instead of sharing a secret, she could just show her scar to him. A deeply flustered Tea-soo frantically asked if she understood the implications of her offer, while she quickly defended that the old mark was mostly faded and not gross. Covering his flushed face, he stammered that the scar's appearance was not the actual issue. She pressed herself against his back, catching him off guard. She softly confirmed that she knew exactly what her offer meant. Standing she outside at night admitted she only felt Tea-soo comfortable. Admitted he showing the hidden mark to him completely froze when leaving him given to the actual silent lie chance to note her look, surprising boldness. Standing she outside at night admitted she only felt Tea-soo comfortable. Admitted he showing the hidden mark to him completely froze when leaving him given to the actual silent lie chance to note her look. Feeling like a coward, he revealed to Haeun that Mia had a childhood scar located just below her chest. He reflected on leaving her in charge of checking the mark to confirm the girl's identity. He questioned if his hesitation stemmed from fear that the person inside was no longer the Mia he once knew. Standing outside the building, he gazed up at a lit window while his lingering doubts continued. Haeun served a bowl of porridge to Mia in bed, noting that she was the one who had originally taught her the recipe. She asked if she had forgotten that it was her mother's sick day recipe. This caused she to freeze in sudden shock before she began forcing an awkward smile. Masking her panic, she blamed her lapse in memory on a cold, while Haeun helpfully listed the specific ingredients to jog her memory. She continued eating the porridge, complimenting her superior cooking skills as the reason for its enhanced taste. She cheerfully confessed that she actually had not made the dish herself. She revealed that her older brother Tea-soo had cooked it instead. The young man peeked his head inside the apartment in slight confusion. Haeun welcomed the boy back when he arrived. The boy asked about Mia's whereabouts, only to learn that she had just retreated to her room a moment ago. The boy was surprised to learn that she wanted to thank him for the elevator incident and planned to treat him later. She announced she needed to leave before her dorm curfew, prompting the boy to thank her for her help. As she was about to go, the boy hesitantly called out her name. She turned back toward him and asked how it went. Lowering his gaze, he quietly asked if she had a scar. She instructed him to meet her next Sunday at noon outside the Seohan Plaza main gate. She promised to reveal whether Mia had a scar or not in exchange for him buying her lunch there. She pointed out that he had used her to check for the girl's scar and demanded the meal as fair compensation. He wondered to himself if his ulterior motive for asking her help had really been that obvious. She teased that she knew his plan all along while he smiled awkwardly and noted she was being surprisingly generous instead of getting angry. She reassured him that he could use her as much as he needed in the future. She reminded him of her previous promise to always be there for him regardless of the circumstances. She approached with a warm smile, assuring him that she would always be on his side. The flustered Tisu asked if she had fallen for him and playfully questioned if he should confess to her right away. She clarified she was joking and reminded him that he needed to be the one to confess first once he truly fell for her. He looked at her and quietly agreed to wait until he was certain of his feelings. Satisfied with his answer, she cheerfully waved goodbye as she stepped out the apartment door. While washing the dishes, Han Tisu reflected on what a genuinely good person Haeun was. He continued cleaning, admiring her bright personality and noting that she was someone anyone could easily love. He recalled a snowy evening they spent together at a playground, dwelling on her naturally bright disposition. He remembered gazing softly at her face through the freezing winter air. The memory of her cheerful, smiling face was still vivid in his mind. Thinking back to her radiant smile under the street lamp, he concluded that she was almost too good for someone like him. Back at the kitchen sink, he muttered to himself that she was simply too nice for her own good. Washed herself, he and the girl thoroughly in the shower. Tisu neighboring reasoned that her specific apartment's condition was a major clue. Given he away her true asked her if she was identity. Arrived at the she took apartment sharp breath complex. Sudden Tisu attention stepped out of his apartment and glanced down the hallway. The girl stood frozen in surprise outside her door. He and the girl unexpectedly crossed paths as they left their neighboring apartments simultaneously. He asked her if she was feeling okay. She took a sharp breath, appearing visibly flustered by his sudden attention. Pulling her mask up to hide her face, she mumbled that she was fine before walking away down the corridor. At the infirmary, she admitted to the nurse that her insomnia had severely worsened and asked for a sleep prescription. The nurse explained that the school could not prescribe sleeping pills and asked if a recent stressful event had triggered her lack of sleep. Mia's thoughts immediately drifted to Han Tisu, her ex-boyfriend. He sat quietly nearby, focused entirely on his studies. A concerned classmate asked if she was all right, and she casually agreed. Internally, she blamed him entirely for her overwhelming stress. She bitterly realized that crossing paths with him again was the sole reason for her current misery. Sitting a few desks away from him, she wondered if ignoring him during their first encounter would have changed everything. Resting her chin on her hand, she let out a heavy sigh. She concluded that it was far too late to dwell on regrets. Walking through the campus, the black-haired girl pondered how she expected him to hate her. She assumed he already knew her secret. She recalled accepting money to constantly surveil and report his every move. She questioned his silence on the matter, remembering his previous admission about cutting ties with his family. Still wondering why he left home, she abruptly stopped upon noticing him walking closely behind her. Flustered, she turned and demanded to know why he was following her. He feigned ignorance and casually asked if she had noticed him all along. He admitted his worry for her and asked if looking out for his junior was acceptable. She blushed deeply, her heart skipping a beat at his direct and sincere admission of concern. Highly flustered, she asked if he had completely ignored her earlier warnings about the risks of being seen together. He explained that gossips would reject the truth regardless. He added that overreacting would only fuel the rumors further. He casually stated that he never cared about rumors anyway. The girl stared back at him in stunned silence. Mia reminded the club president that he previously considered the rumors problematic. Tisu simply acknowledged her point. Noting that she seemed fine, he told her to take care and walked away. She immediately called out after him. She stood alone in silence as he departed. She silently blamed him for being the cause of her insomnia. She reminisced that he was her first and last boyfriend. Back in her room, Mia calculated her future timeline. She realized she had to endure at least 2 more years until Han Tisu graduated. Exhausted by the situation, she collapsed onto her bed. She frustratingly questioned why he had to suddenly reappear and mess with her head. She wondered if he was living happily just to prove a point, completely forgetting about her existence. Recalling his regretful expression, she silently wondered if he actually hated her at all. She reflected on her unfulfilled promise to be stronger as she looked at the thoughtful items left for her. She realized that seeing him continually brought back painful, buried memories of a dark hospital room. She recalled swearing to never see him again and coldly cutting him completely out of her life. She remembered repeatedly promising herself to stop clinging to the past like a fool. She had vowed to cut ties with everything and finally start a new life. Seojin pointed out over the phone that Mia was simply experiencing regret. She challenged her to admit that her heart had wavered after seeing her ex-boyfriend Tisoo up close again. When she accused her of hovering around him, a blushing Mia defensively muttered that she was not the one doing the hovering. A flood of recent memories with Tisoo rushed through her mind, causing her to blush deeply. As Seojin pressed for more details, Mia buried her burning face in her arms and loudly insisted it was a misunderstanding. Her voice challenged her, asking if she was too terrified to confess that she had sold him out for money. She questioned if she feared his inevitable hatred once he learned the truth. She listened in distressed silence as the caller asked if that fear was keeping her quiet. Standing by her law office window, she questioned if she was truly keeping the secret for his sake or just leaving them both in the dark. She pressed on, suggesting she was merely trying to protect herself from getting hurt. Unable to handle the harsh accusations, she clutched her knees and begged her to stop. She abruptly shifted the topic, asking her why she had stopped writing in her journal recently. When she questioned her medication habits, she defensively blamed her missed entry on a sudden fever. She stated that the current arrangement was failing and abruptly announced her imminent arrival. Panicking on her bed, she frantically yelled into the phone, demanding to know why she was coming over. Mia stood frozen with her phone to her ear in panic. Tisoo addressed her directly by name. She slowly lowered her phone as he asked if she was finished with her conversation. She gasped his full name in sheer disbelief. He called out to her while standing in the hallway outside her apartment. His sudden presence prompted her to immediately slam her front door shut in a panic. He remained outside the closed door and asked if she was all right. Leaning against the door from the inside, a flustered Mia asked how long he had been standing there and if he had overheard her phone call. He replied that he assumed she was just talking to herself and explained he brought over some extra egg porridge. He waited patiently in the hallway with the pot while she firmly declined his offer from behind the door. He awkwardly insisted he just made too much food and wanted to eat. His persistence caused her to lose her composure and violently yell that she did not want any. Taken aback by her intense reaction, he murmured quietly in sudden realization. Huddled on the floor, she apologized for her outburst and assured him that he no longer needed to worry about her. She then asked if Han Tisoo still harbored lingering feelings for her while he stood silently by the door. She acknowledged his kindness as mere familiarity and pointed out that he now liked someone else, warning that their situation could easily be misunderstood. With a flushed face, she questioned his persistent kindness and asked if he resented her even a little. She guiltily admitted that she had previously disappeared without a word and treated him with coldness. He calmly replied by asking what it would mean if he did not resent her. Startled by his unexpected response, she looked up at him in complete shock. She desperately accused him of lying about not hating her, prompting him to admit that he did harbor a small amount of resentment. He immediately clarified that his primary emotion was simply relief that she was alive and safe. He recalled the moment he had walked past her at the police station. He noted that he had seen her again at the station that day. He reflected on seeing Haeun there during that specific encounter. She covered her mouth with a deeply flushed, anxious face as she listened to him speak from the other side of her door. Crouching in the hallway, he left a small pot outside her apartment while acknowledging her lost interest and the tough time she had endured. Sitting paralyzed against the door, she listened as he assured her that he did not resent her for creating distance between them. He admitted his nosiness but asked her to view the food as a hometown friend's concern before stepping away. He advised her to get plenty of rest, leaving her huddled alone against the inside of her entryway. She clutched her shoulder as an internal voice questioned if seeing him up close was the reason she kept hovering around him. Tears welled in her eyes as the intrusive thoughts insisted she would change her mind after seeing him again. Han Tisoo sat outside a closed office building in the middle of the night. The young man sat shivering in the freezing cold. A woman with an umbrella, Haeun, approached and asked what he was doing there. She noted that he had been sitting alone since the previous night and asked if he was waiting for someone. He explained that he had lost his wallet and was waiting for the day labor agency to open. Upon learning the agency had been closed for a while, he sighed over his bad luck. He stood up and apologized to her for getting in her way. As he turned to leave, she called out to stop him. Haeun invited him to her place since he had nowhere else to go. He stared back at her in surprise. She smiled down at him. Mia asked Tisoo if he simply did not want to while they stood together in the rain. Tea-Soo smiled to himself upon realizing she had even washed the dishes for him. Tea-Soo felt relieved watching Mia attend school normally despite her wearing a mask and sneezing. She abruptly asked if he still harbored lingering feelings for her. He internally questioned why he kept worrying about her if his feelings were truly gone. Tea-Soo recalled a past conversation where Mia firmly assured her friends that she had zero lingering feelings for him after their breakup. Tea-Soo wondered what caused the dramatic change in the messy girl's appearance, but quickly denied having any feelings for her. His friend teased him about his denial, prompting a blushing him to confess who he actually liked. He gazed fondly at the beautiful long-haired senior Hisoo Sunbi standing nearby. Gripping his pounding chest, he indicated that his crush was standing right over there. With a deeply flushed face, he reflected that everything started the day he met her. A short-haired girl named Dabin suddenly interrupted his thoughts by pointing out his red face. He looked down at her in annoyance as she asked if he was catching a cold. She recognized the situation as a classic dating sim trope. She eagerly saw a golden opportunity to raise her affection points with him. She cheerfully offered to take care of him. However, she found that he had already completely vanished from the spot. Frustrated, she yelled at him to stop ignoring her as he walked away. Their hands clasped tightly together. Tea-Soo expressed sudden confusion. Mia smiled and remarked on their excellent timing. Walking hand in hand, Mia prompted Tea-Soo for his agreement. Their hands locked firmly together, he let out a sound of surprise. She smiled softly and noted the convenient timing. As they walked together holding hands, she asked for his confirmation. She gazed forward with a calm and resolute expression. He blushed, admitting he brought her along because she seemed to be in trouble. As they walked hand in hand, he marveled at her consistent ability to figure things out. The woman hesitated, beginning to explain that she always noticed whenever Tea-Soo was in trouble. She paused and offered a warm, knowing smile. He looked back at his Sunbi in confusion, waiting for her to finish her thought. She declared that she would keep her reasoning a secret. She winked playfully at him. He examined his reflection in a nearby mirror, wondering aloud what his obvious tell could be. He questioned his reflection about being too easy to read. This prompted a passing masked girl to mutter an insult about his narcissism. Recognizing the masked girl as Mia, Tea-Soo called her over and abruptly startled her. She complained to him about being dragged to a quiet stairwell, reminding him they had agreed to avoid crowded places. She continued to protest the secluded location, but he casually brushed off her concerns, stating he had nothing major to discuss. He bluntly confirmed her status as his ex-girlfriend, causing her to freeze in shock. She demanded an explanation for his sudden statement. He clarified he was only asking out of curiosity due to their past relationship status. He sincerely asked her if his moments of distress were easily noticeable to others. Leaning in uncomfortably close, he suggested that she might be able to read his emotions even if others could not. He inquired about any specific physical tells he might display when flustered. She denied noticing any and questioned his sudden interest, prompting him to explain that someone else had pointed it out. He thanked her for her time and wished her luck on her upcoming exam. Mia awkwardly waved and returned the sentiment. She internally scolded herself for the awkward wave as they parted ways. Night fell over the large university campus building. Tea-Soo walked along the sidewalk as a dark sedan pulled up beside him, while a voice from inside the vehicle abruptly called out his name. The senior asked why he was on campus so late. He hesitated, weighing the 20-minute walk against the risk of falling asleep in her comfortable car before his shift began. The dark sedan pulled away from the curb and merged onto the street. Haeyoon cheerfully hummed a tune as she drove. He quietly observed her unusually bright mood. He asked if something good had happened since she kept humming. She deflected the question, noting how much he had brightened up recently. She recalled worrying about how gloomy and quiet he was when they first met, which he brushed off by stating he was just young back then. He countered that she was equally unusual for having let strangers into her home so easily. He questioned what she would have done if a dangerous situation had arisen. She simply smiled and dismissively stated that what was done was done. Entering the dark apartment, she announced it was her place as he reflected on how his senior was always a unique person. He observed the barren apartment and commented that there was nothing there. She defended her home, mentioning that she at least had a bed and a loft. He turned away and asked Hisoo to excuse him then. As he began to walk away, she told him to wait a second. She asked if he was scared, prompting him to ask if she meant there were dangerous people hidden inside. She nervously admitted that would be scary. Standing in the empty room, she clarified what she actually meant. She explained that others had told her the lifelessness of the place creeped them out. He looked back as she confessed it was her first time bringing a guy over and she was curious about his opinion. He walked further inside and casually replied that it did not bother him since his own room was basically the same. She stared blankly and mused that it would at least be easy to move somewhere else later. He reflected on how she had kindly taken him in as a complete stranger, offering him shelter and food with nothing expected in return. Tea-Soo flinched in the passenger seat as Hee-Soo Sunbi suddenly moved toward him. She leaned in close and accused him of hiding something, putting him on edge. She pointed out his recent distracted behavior and guessed that he had someone on his mind. Her blunt observation caused him to immediately panic. She teasingly asked if he was romantically involved with Mia, prompting him to flatly deny the accusation. As the traffic light turned green, she mentioned the persistent rumors about him and her, though he firmly rejected them again. She suddenly realized a connection and asked if he and Mia had been high school classmates. She reasoned that Mia's late enrollment explained their awkward dynamic, while he silently decided to coordinate his cover story with her later. She quietly accepted this conclusion as she continued driving. He internally pieced the situation together, his expression hardening as he processed the sudden revelation. He sat in the car with her, quietly wondering if she felt relieved. She stared ahead with an exhausted, defeated expression after receiving a text message from her mother. Sitting alone on the floor in the dark apartment, she muttered that she completely hated her situation. Tea-Soo looked visibly flustered by the sudden attention. Mia cheerfully greeted him and held up a pink shirt to see if it suited his taste. His senior quickly intervened with a white shirt, arguing that he preferred more low-key styles. He stood nervously between the two women as they demanded to know his preference. He awkwardly replied that both shirts were fine. She pressed him to pick the one that grabbed his attention more. His senior agreed, insisting it all came down to which option he truly liked. He told the girls to wait, reminding them that she would be the one wearing the outfit. He asked if they really expected him to wear that, to which they enthusiastically agreed. He mentally noted that he had been dragged to a department store by the surprisingly close pair. She made her return dressed in a black crop top and choker. Following midterms in late April, a notice for the upcoming school festival's freshman fashion event was posted on the bulletin board. Halting in the hallway, Tea-Soo overheard the girls from his department discussing the troublesome social welfare department. He paused to listen as they continued their conversation about the upcoming festival. Yoon-ju complained about the social welfare department picking fights and trying to dominate the festival, causing Tea-Soo to approach and ask if there had been another incident. He was informed that their department had gotten into another major altercation with the social welfare girls the previous night. Noticing Mia's flustered expression, he asked if she had something on her mind. She appeared startled by the question and nervously denied that anything was wrong. He reflected that he had rarely crossed paths with her since their previous incident at the elevator. He noted that even during accidental encounters, she would quickly make excuses and flee to avoid him. She thought to herself that he was no longer glaring or using harsh words, wondering if she was overthinking things. He explained that the recent drama was simply part of a long-running war between the Medicom and social welfare departments. Statement: recent drama was questioned the actual simply part of a long existence of a runny war between the leaving the Medicom and social cafeteria, early to welfare avoid the rival department's department. Giving a thumbs up, the long-haired girl cheerfully admitted she had just made the rumor up. He asked about their contest entries, and the girls listed several events they were considering. They eventually dismissed the cross-dressing competition due to a perceived lack of suitable candidates. He reminded the group that the cross-dressing contest had no year restrictions and was open to everyone. The bob-cut girl suggested him for the contest due to his clear skin and height. The suggestion to enter the male lead into the contest completely surprised the long-haired girl. The long-haired girl immediately asked about the prize money and considered learning makeup, causing him to ask why she was taking it so seriously. He suggested his classmate Jo Young-ha instead, noting the other student's smaller build and long hair. She expressed her disgust for him, stating he seemed like the type to secretly lick borrowed makeup. Tea-Soo questioned what kind of reputation he had with the girls. She paused and looked at him. She told him that with his cute looks he might actually have a shot. She asked if he wanted to seriously aim for a prize, prompting him to request she not take the joke so literally. He firmly declined the offer. She angrily accused him of not caring if their department lost to social welfare. He calmly replied he had no hard feelings toward their rivals. A girl with light brown hair suddenly burst into the room and eagerly asked to join their conversation. They recognized the newcomer as Hee-Soo, the department president. She complained that the social welfare girls and their annoying president had started another fight just like the previous year. She furiously declared that their medicom department would win everything this year to permanently silence the social welfare president. Mia agreed with her, and the two fiercely united in their goal to win the competition. Tea-Soo watched them, wondering why they were taking the rivalry so seriously. She enthusiastically told him it was time to go. He reacted with utter confusion. He asked where they were supposed to go. Tea-Soo was forcefully dragged into a large clothing store by two female friends. Mia enthusiastically ordered him to come over to the racks. He grumbled about being coerced into the exhausting shopping trip. From behind the fitting room door, he hesitantly called out to his Sunbee. He stepped out awkwardly with a skirt pulled over his pants, complaining that the outfit would never work, while the girls stifled their laughter. Still giggling at his ridiculous appearance, Hee-Soo told the cashier she was definitely buying the outfit. Sitting with the shopping bags, he realized the girls only used him as a makeshift mannequin to check sizes. She and Haeun cheerfully decided to continue shopping for an upcoming freshman contest. He deeply regretted not leaving earlier, knowing he would only be dragged around further as their pack mule. A voice suddenly called his name from the fitting rooms, and he answered with nervous anticipation. Hee-Soo stepped out wearing a modest pink shirt and asked if it suited her. He nervously admitted it looked all right, but questioned her unusually subdued fashion choice. She reminded him the contest theme was about freshmen and slipped on round glasses to complete her innocent look. He remained silent as he looked at her outfit. His face began to flush deeply while they stood together. He eventually remarked that her current outfit made her look her actual age. This comment prompted her to defensively ask if he thought she looked old. She held up a pair of round glasses, suggesting them as an accent piece. She leaned in and asked for his honest opinion on the look. When she asked if he was even paying attention, a highly flustered Tea-Soo quickly agreed that the glasses suited her well. Mia then emerged in a casual animal print sweater, asking if she dressed too young. The sight left him stunned, while Hee-Soo appeared visibly unamused in the background. She explained she chose the outfit thinking it would fit the younger girls in the department, but worried it was too much for herself. He assured his senior the outfit was perfect and made her look 5 years younger, causing her to pout and ask if she seemed old to him. His senior called out from the fitting room, instantly grabbing both his and her attention. She stepped out in a short, revealing dress and asked if it made her look younger. The display left him speechless, while Mia suspected she was trying to compete. The Deliria building stood brightly illuminated against the night sky. Mia hid in the restroom, nervously biting a towel as she questioned why she had gotten so worked up. She rationalized that it would actually be better if her two companions got along. She hoped he would find someone quickly to spare her any worry. Her senior asked if something had happened. Mia deflected by praising the timely shopping trip for fresh air. The senior fell silent for a moment when she mentioned that she looked tired. Recovering, the senior blamed her behavior on the excitement of their stroll. She suggested they return to Tea-Soo, who was likely already waiting for them with all their shopping bags. She stared suspiciously at the senior's forced expression, questioning if she had always smiled so falsely. The senior called out to him as they walked back towards him. The senior quietly walked ahead through the department store. Tea-Soo recalled pulling out a dark suit jacket during their previous visit to the store. That shopping trip had taken place the day before the entrance ceremony. A younger Tea-Soo had stood by awkwardly, while the senior insisted he could not look shabby for his first impressions. The senior forcefully dragged him by the hand to adjust his coat as he mentally apologized to his friends. Hee-Soo apologized to the couple, explaining that an urgent matter prevented her from giving them a ride before they exchanged goodbyes as she drove off. Left alone, Tea-Soo remarked to Mia that their outing had been surprisingly worthwhile. Visibly annoyed by his comments, she reached out and pinched his cheek. Startled by the sudden physical reprimand, he immediately questioned why she was doing that. She looked away and asked if he truly harbored such strong feelings for Hisu. Noting her previous interruptions, he questioned her motives for asking him again. He then asked if she was behaving this way because she was jealous. She quickly claimed she was only joking as they continued their walk. As they walked down the bustling street, she questioned why he had not yet confessed his strong feelings to Hisu. Noting his proactive nature, she assumed he would have already made a move. She pressed further, asking if he had previously confessed. She wondered if he had merely faced a polite rejection. He internally confirmed his strong desire to confess, as he recalled standing outside Sunbi's door with a rose while she was busy on a phone call. Returning to the present, he explained to his companion that poor timing had ultimately ruined his chance. He revealed that Sunbi had dropped 2 classes to delay her graduation, leaving her completely stunned by the revelation. Han Tisu walked down the busy street carrying shopping bags and wondered where Cha-mia had gone. He looked around frantically, noting that she had been right beside him just a moment ago. Spotting a familiar figure facing away from him, he hoped she had not disappeared again. Hearing a cat meow nearby, he sighed and wondered if he was experiencing a familiar situation. He spotted her crouching on the sidewalk and petting a stray cat. He approached and startled her, causing a grumpy reaction. She turned around as he questioned what she was doing. She explained she couldn't resist the cat's immense cuteness. She ignored his observation that the cat wore a collar and had an owner. Watching her nuzzle the animal, he saw the Mia he once knew. He realized her affectionate behavior toward animals remained completely unchanged. He also recalled that Hisu D this same fondness for cats. In a memory, a stray cat drank milk provided by her. Tisu questioned if regular milk was safe, surprising her with the sudden conversation. He noted he found where she goes at night. He then asked why she didn't just adopt the stray. She admitted she had considered taking in another stray earlier, leaving him visibly surprised. She offered him a drink, making him realize she was referring to a real animal. She explained that adopting a stray without being able to care for it would be unfair. He turned to her and questioned why she had brought him in instead. She teased that she brought him in because she could take responsibility for him. He asked in shock if her feelings were actually love at first sight. She playfully asked if that answer was enough to satisfy his question. He reminded her of their agreement not to joke about such things, prompting her to point out his immediate dismissal of her words as a joke. She teasingly asked if he disliked her confession. She laughed at his blunt reaction as he grumbled in agreement. She urged him to consider that she only realized he was her junior after he joined, pointing out they had no prior connection. She reasoned that her sudden interest was love at first sight. She was amused that he calmly dismissed the notion as a lie instead of getting flustered. She confessed that she found him entertaining because he reminded her of herself. Tisu woke up abruptly in his dark room. He dismissed the vivid memory as a strange dream before looking out the window. Tisu waited outside the large plaza building and checked his phone. He wondered if an emergency had occurred since Haeun was never late. Just as his phone began to ring. Recognizing the caller as her roommate, he answered and immediately heard a panicked voice yelling his name. The frantic roommate begged him to come stop her, while struggling alongside several other girls to physically restrain her. A caller loudly informed the young man that a junior could not sleep despite pulling all-nighters because she was eager to meet him. The junior sleepily agreed over the phone before immediately collapsing onto the floor in exhaustion. Tisu instructed the junior's friends to move her to a bed and thanked them for intervening. Finding himself with unexpected free time before his job, he stood in the street and considered his options. A sudden realization struck him about what usually occurred during his idle moments. He rapidly whipped his head back and forth to scan the surrounding crowds for anyone he might know. Elsewhere, Cha-mia paused as if she sensed something odd. She asked a friend if someone was talking about her. She rubbed her tingling ear and wondered why she was suddenly the topic of conversation. After confirming she was absent, Tisu wondered if their frequent encounters had made him paranoid. A young woman suddenly leaned in close to Tisu and asked if he was searching for his girlfriend. He stood frozen as she looked up at him with a mischievous expression on her face. He stared in shock and recognized the smiling woman as his senior Hisu. He spotted her in the plaza and asked what she was doing there. He approached her, surprised to find her sitting alone in the middle of the afternoon. She sat on a bench drinking a beer, prompting him to ask why she was drinking in broad daylight. Things that had she sat on a happy-end bench recently? He, drinking in broad, cautiously daylight, asked if she had just returned from meeting certain people. She appeared surprised by the question and questioned his reasoning for asking that. He explained that her dark attire closely resembled morning clothes. She paused and looked down at her outfit. He added that her forced smile gave it away, prompting her to laugh and agree. He quickly assured her she did not have to talk about it if it was difficult. They sat quietly side by side as she stared downward in thought. Hisu casually remarked that it was funny how those people never picked up on her subtle cues at all. She confirmed she intentionally wore the morning clothes. Tisu looked shocked as she revealed she was recently instructed to take bride lessons. She explained her family agreed to let her graduate if she maintained her grades. She added that she attended the family meal today, fully intending to cause a scene. She recalled sitting through the dinner in her dark attire, looking completely miserable, while everyone merely laughed and ignored her completely. She admitted to cowardly leaving without taking any action as they sat quietly together on the bench in the evening chill. Attire, she looking apologized to him completely for miserable, while everyone merely complaining to him laughed, and once again. Consistently, she returned with admitted to defeated cowardly expression, leaving without, after taking any meeting those specific action as they people. He remembered how she would always lean her head against his shoulder for comfort on those difficult days. He noted that she predictably sought the exact same remedy every single time. Suddenly energized, she stood up and declared an intense craving for extra spicy 𝒩𝒂ℎ. Amused, he mentioned his newly freed schedule while suggesting they grab some food. He then formally invited Mia to go eat together. She looked at him in surprise, caught off guard by the sudden invitation, pausing to think. She tapped her chin as she considered the offer. She then cheerfully requested that he cook the dish for her himself. Caught off guard, he listened as she continued with an even bolder suggestion. She playfully insisted they eat the meal together in his room. Shortly after, a pan of spicy 𝒩𝒂ℎ simmered on the stove inside the apartment. Tisu cooked a meal in his kitchen. Meanwhile, his sonbi Hisu slept soundly on the bed nearby. Stirring the food, he noted how long it had been since she last visited. He recalled that she had initially helped him secure this apartment back when he was in the military. Afterward, she had distanced herself to avoid any rumors. He approached the bed and debated whether he should wake her up. Although she had previously asked to be woken when the food was all finished, he hesitated. He looked at Hisu's face and considered letting her sleep for a while longer. She suddenly grabbed Tisu from behind and playfully announced she was completely awake, startling him. The sudden surprise caused him to lose his footing and slip. The sudden impact of his fall rattled the books resting on a nearby shelf. She smiled warmly from her spot on the mattress. He blushed fiercely as he ended up pinned against the bed while she held his shoulders and casually asked what he was doing. Customers opened the door and walked into a brightly lit street cafe. Inside, Mia reacted with surprise and immediately asked for clarification about the president's sonbi. The brown-haired girl showed a photo from a streamer party to her. The girl explained that they had all attended the party together, where they learned Hisu was the daughter of a wealthy family. The photo revealed her standing next to the CEO of a parent company. Hearing rumors of her marrying the CEO, the black-haired girl leaped up and loudly questioned if Tisu knew about the arrangement. She briefly debated whether they should inform him before quickly dropping the subject. She recalled a past conversation where he admitted his confession to her failed. The girl thought back to how dejected he looked during that difficult moment. He had explained that he tried to tell her his feelings, but the timing was unfortunately off. Sitting back down, she silently wondered if he had abandoned his confession because he already knew about the impending marriage. Back in the apartment, the spicy 𝒩𝒂ℎ simmered on the stove as Tisu suddenly shifted his stance. Hisu leaned in extremely close and grabbed the heavily blushing him by his collar. Her intense gaze fixed on him as he nervously stammered her name. As he questioned her sudden proximity, she snapped a photo of his flustered face. She cheered loudly about capturing his dumb expression while holding up her phone. When he asked why she took the picture, she laughed and looked at the screen. She explained that she wanted a funny keepsake of him before their graduation. Tisu begged her to delete the embarrassing photo, but Hisu firmly refused because she liked how natural he looked. He smiled in resignation and admitted there was nothing he could do. He rushed to the sink, threatening to water down the spicy 𝒩𝒂ℎ as a hostage tactic, while she panicked and begged to negotiate. Sitting together on a balcony at night, he mentioned her arranged marriage and asked if it would happen right after graduation. She explained she insisted on waiting until graduation, though she acknowledged her opinion mattered little to her family. Looking thoughtfully at him, Sunbi wondered if she could have run away from everything if she had someone like him whom she genuinely liked. He looked confused as Sunbi bluntly pointed out that the friend he had spent all night searching for was actually his girlfriend. Sunbi playfully noted his red ears gave him away. She explained that this was how she figured out his previous claim of love at first sight was entirely hollow. He remained silent as Sunbi questioned what he planned to do next regarding his future. He asked intently if she was truly going to get married just because her parents ordered it. She smiled and asked if she still needed another reason to be there, as he recalled that she had also been eating 𝒩𝒂ℎ on that specific day. She enthusiastically praised him, declaring that his homemade 𝒩𝒂ℎ was immensely superior to anything store-bought. She suggested he cook for a living after graduation and promised to vouch for him, while he playfully asked if she would be willing to invest in his potential business. He expressed surprise that she finished the large portion despite having eaten earlier. He followed up by warning her about the consequences of overeating. She defensively claimed that girls possess 3 separate stomachs, explaining that 𝒩𝒂ℎ counts as dessert. She admitted she finished the meal because she simply refused to waste a single bite of his cooking. She added that it had been a long time since she ate something he made for her. Her sentimental admission caused him to blush deeply. She eagerly rushed off to do the dishes while insisting they split the ingredient costs. He watched her quietly as she lay on the bed. He then asked why she had specifically requested to eat with him. He pointed out that she despised sweet and spicy food. He reminded her how she had completely avoided 𝒩𝒂ℎ when they previously lived together. He questioned why she had suddenly decided to eat an entire plate of it with him today. As Tissue grew visibly flustered, Hisu smiled warmly and suggested that perhaps her tastes had simply changed over time. Mia approached Tissue with an umbrella and asked what he was doing sitting outside. He stared up silently as she noted he had been sitting there alone since the previous night. Standing over him on the snowy street, she asked if he was waiting for someone. Reflecting on her sudden rebellious urge, she offered him a place to stay if he had nowhere else to go. She looked down at him with a gentle expression. As they stood together under the umbrella, she asked if he was unwilling to follow her. A washing machine ran quietly in the apartment. Mia stood in the hallway and observed Tissue working at the kitchen counter. Looking surprised, she noted that he was already awake. She asked what he was doing, and he explained he was cooking a meal to repay her hospitality instead of just freeloading. Tissue finished preparing a meal in the kitchen and nervously told Hisu that the food was almost ready. She introduced herself as Song Hisu and cheerfully suggested that he call her Nuna instead. As they sat down to eat quietly, an internal monologue reflected on the fateful day the narrator was sold off into an arranged marriage. The narrator grimly described being treated as a mere product for her parents' business interests. She asked if the food was good, but he awkwardly admitted he was wondering why she never came to his bed the previous night. She casually confessed she expected him to make a move on her, causing the shocked young man to spit out his food. While he frantically questioned her logic, the narrative coldly labeled him as an obedient good kid. With a melancholic expression, she admitted she never would have brought a complete stranger home if she had been in her right mind. She explained that her parents completely ignore her personal life as long as she remains obedient to their wishes. Tissue looked confused when Mia mentioned she might have actually liked that phrase. She explained her family only valued her as a product, so she brought him there to see what would happen if she ruined that value. She jokingly added that she chose him for his looks. Interested? Sleeping him, Tissue silently asked if she was joking, but she wondered gave if she lacked charm, non-committal response as they finished their meal. Apartment, and several asked if Mia had nights heard any news later. Mia regarding her slipped into hard to find Tissue's friend room while he slept, and noted that he still had not come to her. Sleeping him, Tissue silently asked if she was joking, but she wondered gave if she lacked charm. Apartment, and several asked if Mia had nights heard any news later. Mia regarding her slipped into hard to find Tissue's friend. He pondered the situation, wondering if the missing friend was even still alive. He paused his chores and offered to help her search for the missing friend. She politely declined his help, explaining she had sworn to find her friend entirely on her own. Tea-Soo admitted that he feared he would never see her again if he did not act, while the Sunbi listened quietly with a soft expression. She recalled sensing his hesitation during a past conversation where he hoped she would soon find her missing friend. She remembered wondering if she would ever be able to push him away before stirring awake in bed, murmuring for her own senior. Sitting up in bed, she looked down to find Tea-Soo reminding her about a student council meeting and urging her to wake up. She thanked him for waking her, causing his face to flush deeply. Flustered, he urged her to hurry and get changed before quickly rushing down the stairs. The Sunbi reflected that their 6 months living together had been more than enough time to truly understand him. Clutching her shirt, she sadly concluded that the other woman must be deeply loved by him. Hee-Soo admitted to herself that her intuition had unfortunately been right. She realized with absolute certainty that she felt intensely jealous. Tea-Soo glanced over his shoulder and quietly asked what would happen if things had changed. Hee-Soo gently placed a hand on his back as they stood close together. He hesitantly asked if they could a meal together again sometime. Tea-Soo recalled that the Public Administration Department's booth had served 𝒩𝒂ℜℏ the previous year. Hee-Soo smiled, gently admitting that she had finally resolved to become more like him. Standing behind him in the kitchen, she suggested that they go out to eat together. She then asked if the person he liked was no longer in his heart. Her sudden question caused him to freeze in place at the sink. Elsewhere, a dark-haired girl carrying shopping bags overhears a rumor. She hears that a senior had stayed an extra semester because a planned marriage fell through. She ponders the news while making her way back home. As she approached her building, she spotted Tea-Soo sitting alone on the front steps. Surprised to see him there, she called out his name. She asked what he was doing there, and he looked up with a tired expression to offer a brief greeting. She scolded him for blocking the entrance and demanded a real explanation. This prompted him to confess that he had just failed at asking a senior on a date. The girl began to walk past him to enter the building. Upon hearing about his rejection, the dark-haired girl abruptly stopped in her tracks. Hee-Soo let out a heavy groan. She was overcome with sheer frustration. He questioned her sudden mood change as she sat beside him. He stared in utter confusion. He asked what was wrong as she sat down next to him on the steps. She instructed him to move aside so he would not block the way. The sudden instruction left him completely baffled. He quickly asked why she was sitting right next to him. She reminded him that she was supposed to give him advice. She reiterated her promise to help his relationship with his senior work out. She instructed him to calm down and explain the situation to her slowly. Suddenly, a loud digital beeping sound coming from his pocket interrupted their conversation. She asked if his senior was calling him, but he clarified it was only his alarm signaling that he needed to leave for his part-time job. A red-haired woman walked down the street as the chapter title appeared. Hee-Soo reminded Tea-Soo that she had stayed at his senior's place, though he noted she never previously mentioned they had lived together. Changing the subject, he asked why she was so heavily disguised and wondered if she had caught a cold. Hee-Soo explained her disguise was meant to prevent misunderstandings near the school and insisted she only came to check if he had ruined his plans. She asked if his confession to the senior had gone poorly while Tea-Soo continued sweeping outside the shop. He clarified it was only an invitation to a festival and lamented that his senior already had too much to worry about. He recalled her apologizing at her door and suggesting they talk again the next day. Returning to the present, he told the disguised girl he was not dwelling on the matter and again urged her to leave. The girl pointed out that he was obsessively sweeping a single spot until it sparkled, leaving him in embarrassed silence. Preparing to eat her cup noodles, the girl seriously asked him what his plans were moving forward. Following him inside as he stocked shelves, the girl pressed him on whether he was going to give up. He ignored the question and demanded to know why she had not left yet. He admitted his uncertainty, but noted there was still time before Hee-Soo left the country. This news shocked the girl, who abruptly stopped eating to question Hee-Soo's sudden departure. Haeun asked if his senior was going abroad to study. A shocked Tea-Soo questioned if his senior was breaking off her wedding to leave. He realized his slip-up as she teased his bold statement. He internally panicked upon realizing he had never actually told her about the cancelled wedding. She noted that this explained why he pursued an engaged woman. He scolded her for talking with a full mouth and strictly urged her to keep the secret. He recalled that his hesitation to confess began late last year, remembering when he stood behind his senior with a hidden rose while she took a phone call. He explained that he abandoned his confession upon discovering her plans to leave. He admitted to her that his senior seemed too overwhelmed by the canceled wedding to care about his feelings. Reflecting on a farewell note he once wrote, he stated that cutting ties with family required immense resolve. He noted that he understood that specific burden better than anyone. She asked if he was overthinking things and assuming his confession would alter her plans. He denied this, claiming he simply wanted to avoid burdening his senior further. Leaning in closely, she teased that he was just chickening out from a fear of rejection. A blushing Jisoo sheepishly asked if his cowardice was that obvious. She advised him to stop overthinking and act as he usually did. She pointed out that he typically never cared about the opinions of others. Looking at him intently, she recalled a past study session between them. She reminded him that he was normally the type who never stopped until he got what he wanted. Cha-mia called Jisoo a stubborn pain in the neck, noting that his discouragement over a single failure was uncharacteristic. Startled, he quietly murmured her name. She urged him to be bold, assuring him that she had spoken to his crush. She mentioned that she had confirmed the feelings were entirely mutual. Shocked, he questioned if her certainty was really absolute. Hearing a commotion outside his unit, Jisoo stepped into the hallway. He was stunned to find Jisoo coordinating with movers. He asked if she was assisting a friend. She calmly replied that she was actually the one moving in. Dumbfounded, he questioned why she would abandon her large apartment to live there, but she dismissed it as a desire for a change of pace. She explained that she had convinced the landlord to swap units by offering an extra 5 million won for the hassle. He finally understood why his former neighbor had relocated so abruptly. Blushing slightly, she admitted that she had spent the entire previous day pondering how to answer his recent question. He stared back at her in total confusion. She clarified that she was referring to his date invitation and confessed that she remained completely unsure whether to accept or decline. He listened intently as he watched her reaction. A tearful Jisoo explained that she had spent the previous night wandering around indecisively. She frantically added that she had accidentally signed a lease with his neighbor before fully regaining her senses. He quietly pondered her intuition as he looked at her. She nervously asked him if he would be willing to give their relationship another try. She quickly brightened up and excitedly proposed that they finally go on a date. Outside the building, Yuna sprinted frantically while panicking over what she should do next. She continued her panicked sprint through the corridors. She completely ignored a guard who ordered her to stop running in the hallway. She burst through the door, startling her short-haired friend. Her friend immediately called out her name in surprise. Her friend noted her exhaustion and asked why she was so out of breath. She then asked if something had happened during Yuna's dinner with Jisoo and Jisoo. A teary-eyed Yuna looked extremely distressed as she approached her friend. She lunged forward to hug her friend and loudly announced that she had massive news to. She cried out for him as her friend asked if a senior had upset her again. She confirmed that Jisoo had moved in across from him. Her friend expressed surprise that his crush was common knowledge. She then wondered if Jisoo actually felt the same way about him. Standing by a campus railing, the friend asked if he and Jisoo were dating. She hesitated for a moment while considering the situation. She replied that it did not seem like they were together. She reasoned that their awkward dynamic was likely due to being busy with the upcoming festival. The narrator explained that Jisoo rarely went home due to her demanding student council duties. Meanwhile, Jisoo was completely exhausted from his own demanding part-time job at the gas station. Haeun's friend braided her hair and asked if she was finally giving up on her feelings for Jisoo. Tearing up again, she insisted she would never give up and recalled knowing about his feelings for a long time. She admitted that she originally believed she could just force a smile and handle seeing them together. Breaking into loud sobs, she confessed that seeing them together made her cry uncontrollably, while her friend labeled her stubbornness as an illness. She clung to the hope that he and Jisoo were not officially dating yet. Her friend agreed there was a chance, but bluntly reminded her that he still only viewed her as a little sister. The black-haired girl bluntly stated her final opinion on the complicated situation. She explained that Hisu completely outshone her in femininity, leaving her tearfully confused by the concept. She described Hisu as the literal definition of a woman. She emphasized that a picture-perfect drawing of a woman would simply be Hisu. The black-haired girl pointed out Haeun's childish outfits. Looking at her, she then asked who Hisu would naturally prefer. The black-haired girl furiously yelled that he still saw her as a kid because she constantly ignored her past warnings to mature. She advised her that the only way to win him over was to change. She insisted that she needed to fundamentally alter her own appearance. Later, Haeun unexpectedly showed up at the black-haired girl's apartment. The black-haired girl questioned the visit as she cracked open a glowing briefcase. The black-haired girl, Mia, drooled in shock at the premium Korean beef presented inside the case as a bribe. She told her she had a massive favor to ask. She looked on as she appeared incredibly strict and serious while waiting for an answer. She swallowed, nervously feeling the weight of the serious atmosphere before making her decision. She reluctantly shook her hand in agreement before knowing the terms of the favor. She bribed her with the glowing premium beef right in the hallway, and she quickly accepted the irresistible temptation. She asked if she just wanted to learn how to be prettier, but she clarified that her goal was not simply about physical appearance. She explained she wanted her older crush to finally see her as a woman rather than a child. She dryly noted that this was practically the same thing. She warned that finishing their lessons before the upcoming festival would be extremely tight. She immediately panicked at the thought of her training being cut short. She quickly reassured her that achieving her goal in such a short window was still possible. Pointing forward, she declared that everything depended entirely on building true confidence. She advised her to believe in her own potential strength. She encouraged her student by referencing her own past personal growth. She stared up at her mentor in complete awe of her wisdom. She promised to teach her everything about boosting self-esteem over the next 2 days, as she gazed at her with extreme admiration. Fireworks exploded over the school building to mark the first night of the 𝒩𝒂ℳℰ festival. A young man arrived at the clubroom after wondering why Mia requested to meet him there. He approached cautiously upon noticing the door was already open. A heavily blushing Haeun noticed Tisu's arrival as fireworks began erupting outside. A stunned Tisu stared blankly at her. Standing silhouetted against the bright explosions, blushing intensely, she playfully asked him how she looked. He asked why she was dressed up and noted that her new appearance closely resembled Cha-Mia. 10 hours earlier, the campus was decorated with balloons and fireworks in preparation for a massive outdoor event. An announcer grabbed a microphone and began to hype up the large gathering crowd. He officially kicked off the 2025 𝒩𝒂ℳℰ festival as the massive audience erupted into enthusiastic cheers. Manki grinned, widely declaring that the moment he had been waiting for had finally arrived. He announced his excitement to finally meet his girlfriend, prompting a confused Tisu to ask if he actually had one. Smirking confidently, he claimed that the unnamed girl was practically already his. The campus buzzed with the lively energy of the night festival as students enthusiastically cheered and downed drinks. The celebration continued through the wonderful night as couples enjoyed the romantic atmosphere on campus. Yongha enthusiastically claimed this was his perfect chance to win a girl's heart, but Tisu immediately dismissed the idea as entirely stupid. Another friend suggested they join forces to find partners at the upcoming festival. However, he abruptly opted out of the plan, much to his friend's surprise. Manki casually revealed he already had a girlfriend, leaving his friends in absolute shock. Just as he spoke, a young woman joyfully called out to him from across the area. The freshman Yoonju asked him for help organizing the club tables, and he eagerly agreed to join her side. The short friend fell to his knees in disbelief over Manki's success, prompting Tisu to reiterate that he was also sitting out. The frantic friend demanded to know if he was simply busy working another part-time job. He confidently replied that he might secure a girlfriend soon as well. This left his friend completely crushed as he wished him luck and walked away. He fondly recalled the specific evening Hisu had playfully suggested they go on a date together. Walking alone through the bustling festival grounds, Tisu realized he could have successfully made his move right then and there. Hisu happily agreed to schedule their upcoming date at the public administration stall for the festival. He blushed heavily as he mentally fixated on the prospect of a date with his senior. His path was suddenly blocked by a frantic giant bird mascot, leaving him confused about the obstruction. Recognizing the muffled voice, he looked on in complete disbelief. He asked if the person inside the giant bird suit was actually 𝒩𝒦a. The heavy mascot head came off, revealing a flushed and sweating 𝒩𝒦a gasping in relief as she accepted a cold drink. She promised to pay him back for the drink, prompting him to ask why she was wearing such a heavy outfit in the extreme heat. Dripping with sweat, she breathlessly pointed out that it was obviously a mascot costume. She explained that she had to wear the suffocating suit after losing a draw because she blindly accepted the task. Clutching the mascot head, she complained about the suit's terrible ventilation. She cursed her bad luck for enduring it on such a sweltering day. As she wrung the sweat out of her soaked shirt, he quietly reached into his dark backpack. He asked what was wrong as she suddenly covered her chest with her bag. She quickly brushed him off, claiming her outfit was just bothering her. Jisoo teased Haeun about her costume, asking if she was doing a side gig for extra cash. Annoyed, she snapped back and asked if money was the only thing he ever talked about. Her demeanor shifted as she excitedly explained that she was dressed up for a club promotion. He questioned if she had already done promotions before. She clarified that they needed to host a festival event to keep their club room. She explained that challengers paid a small entry fee for a chance to win a massive cash prize if they beat Dabin. When he expressed shock at the prize amount, she warned him not to try since Dabin was a world-class player. He noted that she seemed to be enjoying college life far more than he had anticipated. She immediately got defensive and asked if he was trying to pick a fight. He reminded her that she used to isolate herself, completely ignoring his past advice to try making friends. He confessed he used to worry about her and was relieved to see her socializing. She blushed at his admission. He quickly apologized for bringing up their past, which 𝒩𝒦a immediately dismissed. Changing the subject, he asked if she had any plans for that evening. Jisoo revealed that he was planning to spend the evening with Jisoo. A sudden beeping interrupted them as 𝒩𝒦a questioned his plans with the older student. She called him to ask if they could postpone their visit to the public administration's stall until the following night. He listened to her explanation regarding the sudden complications. He eventually agreed to the postponement of their plans. He informed her that his plans were cancelled, prompting her to invite him to the department office at 8 o'clock that evening. When he asked about the purpose of the meeting at the department, she remained coy. Prompting her to invite him to the playfully told him he would have to department find office out at an 8 o'clock that evening person. Department, she remained coy. Jisoo arrived at the office to find Haeun waiting instead of her, and she asked him what he thought of her. He realized that she was wearing the exact same outfit 𝒩𝒦a had worn earlier. He internally questioned the sudden change in the girl. She proclaimed her new look was proof of her determination. He questioned her about this determination, and she stated that things would be different from then on. She insisted she would become a completely different person. She then asked if he had forgotten the promise he made to her. He remembered a specific conversation he previously had with her over the phone. He recalled promising to grant her one wish. This was intended as compensation for postponing their previous appointment. The young man confirmed he remembered the festival. She nervously suggested they visit it together the following day. He reacted with intense shock at her sudden proposal. He quickly told her that tomorrow would not work, so she demanded they go today instead. Blushing deeply, she boldly demanded that he take her on a real date. Mia carefully applied lipstick to Haeun while instructing her to stay perfectly still. Mia chuckled proudly at her makeup work while Haeun hesitantly called out to her. She nervously worried her new look would draw too much attention. She reassured her that the extra effort was necessary for the dense young man to notice her transformation. She grabbed her by the shoulders and insisted that she needed attitude and confidence. Holding up the lipstick, she explained that looking strong on the outside was the crucial first step. She added that a strong exterior would build inner bravery, prompting her to admit she did feel stronger. She stood behind her and warned that others would quickly notice her lack of self-belief. Hugging her in front of a mirror, she added that her self-perception was the only thing that truly mattered. She pointed to herself and firmly stated that Haeun was beautiful. She stared ahead in stunned silence. Jisoo looked startled and questioned what anyone in the college was talking about. Inside the student council room, Haeun stretched and noted her work was done right before a cold drink was pressed to her face. A dark-haired woman handed over the drink, thanked the vice president for her help, and asked about her department's stalls. She explained that her department never ran stalls for any of the events. She then reminded her senior about a scheduled appointment. She stared quietly and asked if everything was all right with that appointment. She hesitated quietly with a flushed face. Tea-soo nervously asked if this arrangement was acceptable, and Mia confirmed it was enough. He firmly took her hand in his. Hae-yoon declared that he must spend the day holding hands with her while they explored the festival. Walking through the bustling crowd, she stated this act would permanently settle the debt he owed her. She promised to completely forget the earlier incident involving Mia in exchange for his time. He agreed to her terms since he was currently free, and she quietly accepted his compliance as they held hands. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and suggested that she should go change her clothes. He blushed and explained that her current outfit was really starting to bother him. She paused and looked at him, visibly surprised by his sudden and blunt critique of her attire. The young man told Hae-yoon she was already cute enough as she was and didn't need to imitate anyone else. She teased him about his sudden embarrassment and playfully asked where he learned to talk like that on a real date. Tea-soo silently wondered if his approach was working as she stared up at him. She asked if he preferred a real date while they walked together. She then offered to change her request right now if he wanted. She quickly smiled and added that she was just kidding. Walking through the crowd, she declared she understood real dates because she was also a university student now. A memory of him tutoring her flashed by as she stated she was no longer an elementary school girl. She reminded him that she had grown past the days of sitting beside him during those private lessons. He stared at her with a flushed, surprised expression. She admitted her own embarrassment to herself as she questioned her courage. Despite the blush on her face, she firmly stated she refused to remain a mere child to him. He watched her quietly while she inwardly vowed to make him see her differently that day. He acknowledged her resolve while their hands remained firmly clasped together. She smiled, understanding that a simple change of clothes would not magically alter his feelings. They stood together in the lively crowd as she decided to act with complete confidence to avoid any future regrets. Joyfully, she celebrated there, instructed the group to go ahead and secure a undefeated table run. They also conditioner noted Mia's surprising dedication to the event. The members eagerly suggested celebrating their recent success by inviting the upperclassmen to join them for food. A junior member worriedly checked on her, who slumped over in utter exhaustion after removing her massive mascot head. Joyfully, she celebrated their ins. They also conditioner. While resting, she scrolled through a phone gallery displaying various photos of the club's festival activities. The scrolling paused abruptly upon reaching a candid picture of Hae-yoon. The phone displayed images of her and Tea-soo standing together in the crowd. Mia looked closer at the photo of Tea-soo captured during the event. She laid on the couch and stared at her phone in confusion. She scrutinized the screen and wondered when the captured moment had occurred. In a memory, Tea-soo confronted Mia and asked why she was trying so hard to set him up with their senior. He wondered aloud if being near him bothered her, prompting her to nervously deny it. Mia stared at a present-day prompt asking to delete a photo of Tea-soo and Hae-yoon while recalling his past indifference. Her thumb hovered over the confirmation button to delete the photo. Loud fireworks erupted outside for the university festival. She lowered her phone with a tearful, flushed expression and bitterly noted her own hypocrisy. At the lively outdoor festival, friends congratulated Hae-yoon on her successful presentation. A friend approached Mia and asked what was wrong. She asked if Hae-yoon had decided to skip the event today. She wiped her face with a towel and flatly rejected the idea. Tea-soo and Hae-yoon navigated the festival crowd together. Mia watched from afar, regretting leaving her outfit choice entirely up to her. She wondered if Hae-yoon was all right as he firmly held her hand. He shielded a flustered Hae-yoon from the dense crowd while she questioned if she should have stayed with her friend until the end. He complained about the pushing crowd and checked on her to see if she was okay. She quietly confirmed she was fine as he led her away. She nervously repeated that she was fine while struggling to calm her violently pounding heart. Mia bluntly asked Hae-yoon if she wanted Tea-soo to see her in a completely different light. She squished her cheeks to confirm her true motivation, noting she never viewed her as a dramatic rival trying to steal him. She fanned a resting Haeun, who solemnly admitted she was well aware she still was not good enough for him. She stared blankly ahead and quietly added that there was another reason. She pondered how logic failed against overwhelming power. Haeun admitted to herself that she lacked the femininity of Mia and Hisu. Glancing at Tisu, she decided she refused to remain just a helpless little sister to him. Walking together on campus, she resolved to stop feeling like she meant nothing to him. She swallowed hard and panicked over what her next move should be. She recalled Mia advising her to confront the situation directly. He shattered her mature facade by bluntly asking her to change her clothes. He then followed up by awkwardly suggesting that they hold hands. He offered to buy her cotton candy when he spotted a nearby stall. The offer instantly sparked her uncontained excitement. She gasped as she suddenly realized she was acting like a child again. She quickly rejected the treat as childish, claiming her tastes had matured. She playfully demanded that they eat more adult food instead. The cashier charged them for chestnut sweet bars and herbal tea while he silently questioned why such items were sold at the park. He noted that he was unaware her tastes had changed, though she happily declared the food was delicious. She silently wished their time together would never end as they approached a balloon pop game. She resolved to show him her mature side soon as they reached the game booth. She stared at the booth's giant golden duck prize and found it incredibly cute. He asked if she wanted the prize, but she defensively claimed it was just for kids. He then shocked her by suggesting they win the duck just to sell it for a profit. He observed that the festival pamphlet was filled with physical events like breaking tiles or boards. He excitedly urged her to participate, confident she would easily win the sports games. She panicked at the suggestion, but silently found his enthusiasm adorable. She agreed to join in, but internally dreaded that competing in sports would ruin her attempt to act mature. Despite her hesitation, she resolved to compete for his sake. She aggressively threw darts at the balloons, securing an unprecedented high score and winning the giant gold doll. Haeun aggressively shattered a wooden block to win a set of 30 macarons. Tisu, finding a silver, praised her lining sweeping amidst her victory. She noted that herself for seeing him letting greed ruin her smiling mature facade. Had the simple, completely gesture led her to failed. Tisu, finding a silver, praised her lining sweeping amidst her victory perceived failures. She noted that herself for seeing him letting greed ruin her smiling mature facade brightly brought her immense comfort. They massive held prize hands as she left the worried that her festival grounds together. Had the simple, completely gesture led her to failed, conclude the day was a success. Walking together hand in hand perfectly mirrored the very first day they met. A deep flush spread across her face at the nostalgic memory. Their forward momentum abruptly ceased. Their joined hands slipped apart. He suddenly knelt to tie her undone shoelace. She leaned close and boldly addressed him as her appa, leaving him deeply confused. She stated she needed to make her move before he slipped further away. A phone call caused a loud ringing to interrupt the couple's impending kiss. She glared sharply toward the source of the interruption. Fireworks erupted in the night sky as Mia spotted the couple nearby. The persistent phone ringing completely ruined the intimate moment. She gasped in utter shock upon recognizing them. They awkwardly froze, and she nervously addressed him as her senior. She approached them and asked him if he had already finished his business. She leaned close and whispered about her, leaving him confused. Looking past his companion, he scanned the festival grounds and wondered aloud if the girl standing nearby was her. The red-haired girl suddenly grabbed his face and intimately addressed him, though he remained distracted by her unfamiliar outfit. An orange mask dropped onto the ground. Tisu gasped in shock. The red-haired girl leaned aggressively close to his face and blushed deeply, while Orange Mask watching the drophead onto the scene ground unfold. The interaction with red, wide-haired girl's stunned, leaned eyes aggressively close to his face. Bright fireworks suddenly exploded in the night sky above the gathered crowd. Standing near the festival booths, a short-haired girl turned and asked her what was wrong. Staring blankly ahead with sweat on her face, she nervously muttered a quiet denial. He leaned in and kissed Haeun. She approached and noticed the kissing couple dismissing the sight to herself. Her eyes widened in sudden realization. She mumbled hesitantly as her heart raced. Pulling back slightly from the embrace, she felt overwhelmed by the moment. She stammered in shock as she looked at him. She stared at the passing Mia and voiced her surprise. Stunned by the sudden encounter, she was left speechless. She covered her mouth and stuttered out an incomplete thought. She abruptly turned and sprinted away while he reached out to apologize and asked her to wait. He reached toward her retreating figure and shouted her name. He paused his pursuit in confusion as Hisu brushed past him. He watched her go, stunned by the sudden turn of events and the woman's haste. She continued running down the street, repeatedly berating herself for her foolishness. She cried in frustration while harshly calling herself an idiot. She agonized over her lack of restraint, regretting kissing him while fully aware that she was watching them. Fleeing through the evening crowd, she panicked over ruining their impending date and feared his inevitable scolding. She stopped to catch her breath while dreading the harsh words he might say to her. A hand suddenly grabbed her shoulder, causing Haeun to turn around in shock. She found a panting Hisu expressing relief at finally catching her. She stood firmly behind the startled Haeun. Elsewhere, Tisu carried a large golden plushie and shouted Haeun's name. He wondered where she had disappeared to since she was ignoring her phone. He waded through the dense festival crowd, frustrated by how difficult it was to spot her among all the people. He narrowed his eyes as he fixated intensely on finding her. He regretted not refusing her unexpected kiss more firmly. He stood holding the large plushie in the festival crowd. He recalled standing opposite her on a quiet set of stairs, dreading seeing her expression once more. Startled, he looked up and apologized to the tall figure, admitting he had been distracted. He found himself face to face with a tall, black-haired woman who casually ate a corn dog. He felt immediately intimidated by her height. He listened nervously as she began to speak. The woman reassured him that she had also been distracted while walking. He asked if her clothes were stained with ketchup, privately noting her striking resemblance to Cha Mia. The woman abruptly complimented his cuteness, leaving him entirely bewildered. When she asked for a name, he mistakenly thought she meant the plushie before she clarified she was asking about him. A friend called out to Seojin about festival food. Leading her to agree and turn away from the young man, she headed off toward the food stalls. He recovered from his shock and wondered how the woman could be so incredibly tall. He speculated if she played volleyball or basketball. Observing her piercings and dressing style, he questioned if she might be someone's sister. He quickly dismissed the idea. Conversations about food, he realized he could not confess she already knew about her linger. Senior and Haeun. She admitted she had briefly lost her, claimed her mind. She asked her why she was apologizing. Conversations about food, he realized he could not confess she already knew about her linger upcoming date with Tisu. Near the campus, acknowledged that she had trail found out. She admitted she had briefly lost her, claimed her mind actions were a mistake and that he was innocent. She reassured her that everything was fine and no explanation was needed. She stated she knew exactly how much Haeun liked him, leaving her confused. Pointing forward, she clarified that she actually wanted to ask about something else entirely. She specifically questioned her about her current outfit. She asked her if the item belonged to her, and she clarified that Mia had lent it to her. Changing the subject, she asked if the person he kept searching for was her. She stared intently at her while waiting for an answer. Months earlier, a bright crescent moon hung in the night sky above the quiet city buildings. Below, several cars idled in night traffic at a busy city intersection. Inside a vehicle, a driver asked Hisu what she wanted to do next. Noting that her schedule was canceled, the driver asked if he should take her home. She stared out the window in silence, her mind seemingly far away. Outside the car, a black-haired girl briefly paused on the sidewalk. Spotting the black-haired girl walking past with a companion, she abruptly ordered the driver to stop. She hurriedly climbed out of the vehicle and rushed out onto the street. She stared ahead in shock as she reached the sidewalk. The brown-haired woman spotted the dark-haired man on the street and immediately recognized him as Tisu. Assuming he was returning from his part-time job, she decided to surprise him from behind. She then quietly followed his path to catch up with him. Haeun attempted to call out his name but stopped abruptly mid-sentence. Tisu lowered his head and let out a quiet scoff. He violently slammed his fist into the adjacent wall. The bewildered Haeun questioned his sudden outburst, prompting him to point out that those were her first words to him in 5 years. She stared in absolute shock as she processed the reality of the 5-year gap. She suddenly realized that the dark-haired woman previously seen with him was the very person he had spent years searching for. She stood frozen in dismay as she silently confirmed the mysterious woman's true significance. At an evening festival, Mia called out to Tea-Soo. He calmly turned his head to acknowledge her presence. She questioned if he had not been with Hae-eun since she saw them leaving together, leaving him completely confused. She nervously clarified that she had been with him until just moments ago. His phone suddenly rang with an incoming call from her. Answering the call, he asked in shock if she was already back at her dorm. Sitting on her floor, Hae-eun explained that she had suddenly felt tired after such a hectic day. Her voice on the line caused him to blush deeply. She apologized for kissing him earlier without asking. She confessed that despite promising herself it would not be a date, she could not hold back her feelings. She stood alone in the dark as she listened to the flustered Tea-Soo speaking frantically over the phone. He suggested that since their day ended early, they should consider the kiss as making up for the lost time. She cheerfully declared she had a great time and abruptly ended the call, leaving him calling out her name in a panic. After putting down her phone, she stood by the sink while trying to catch her breath. Her heart continued to race uncontrollably as she remained in the quiet bathroom. Hae-soo remarked that she had recognized Mia earlier that evening. She added that she had found it suspicious to see Tea-Soo close to any girl other than Hae-eun. She questioned what Hae-soo meant by her previous remark about something being more important. She paused, appearing momentarily caught off guard by the question. Hae-soo pointed out that Hae-eun had dismissed witnessing her kiss Tea-Soo as being completely fine. She then asked if Hae-eun simply did not view her as a romantic threat. The blunt question left Hae-eun staring in stunned silence while she looked away nervously. She quickly retracted her statement and asked if Hae-eun simply lacked strong feelings for him instead. She defensively declared that he genuinely had feelings for her and insisted she already knew what kind of person he was. She sternly warned her rival to back off if she was unsure of her own feelings, threatening retaliation if she ever hurt him again. Looking away, she sheepishly muttered that she was foolishly cheering on her own romantic rival. Tea-Soo suggested leaving her belongings there for later, and Hae-soo agreed, relieved she would not have to run home. He rubbed the back of his neck with an awkward laugh. She hesitated nervously before they both startled and blurted out each other's names simultaneously. An awkward tension settled between them as they locked eyes in surprise. Flustered, they both repeatedly insisted that the other should speak first. Pushing past his hesitation, he began to speak. He asked if they could finally have their planned date that night. He admitted his fear of further delays. His confession prompted a silent, contemplative reaction from her. Agreeing with his reasoning, she shyly placed her hand in his. She apologized for the limited seating and asked if he minded the spot. He happily reflected that his long-awaited date with his Sunbi had finally begun. The couple settled at the crowded outdoor table as two other women walked past them. Hae-eun looked down with a faint smile and softly agreed. She recalled a past encounter. She explained that she had originally intended to just quit and end the arrangement immediately. She admitted that her resolve crumbled and she could not speak when she finally faced her parents. The dark-haired woman grabbed her hair in frustration and berated her for being so foolishly uptight. She pointed out the arranged marriage was meaningless since the groom disliked her anyway, questioning why her friend felt any guilt. The dark-haired woman emphasized that only her friend's feelings mattered. Hae-eun confessed she would feel incredibly guilty going on a date while her situation remained unresolved. She admitted that was part of the reason for her hesitation. She recalled standing outside a convenience store with Tea-Soo. She recalled laughing brightly during their outing. Thinking of his affectionate smile only worsened her distress as she realized the true source of her hesitation. Sarah suddenly grabbed her from behind and scolded her for always trying to execute everything flawlessly. She advised her to stop overthinking every minor detail and simply live in the moment. She yelled at her to stop taking a simple date so seriously, and instructed her to view it merely as a casual meal. She proudly reminded her that she was the official matchmaker for their student council. She confidently guaranteed that treating the date like a casual meal would ensure success, and Hae-eun reluctantly admitted that her friend sounded reliable. She immediately capitalized on the moment by trying to sell her a self-written dating guidebook for 30,000 won. She rubbed her head after her friend chided her for her stubbornness, finally conceding that she was right. Hae-soo tried to rationalize the outing to herself, deciding that a simple meal together was not a big deal. She hoped that Tea-Soo's intentions for their date were much more casual than she had initially imagined. She hoped that his intentions for their date were much more casual than she had initially imagined. She silently worried that Mia might turn out to be the woman he had been searching for all along. Pushing her doubts aside, she eagerly greeted him. She suggested they visit the Public Administration Department's booth. She resolved to completely forget her worries for the day as they approached the bustling booth. Their plans hit a snag when a staff member apologetically informed him that the remaining seats were extremely limited. A staff member asked the seated group to make room, catching the attention of her while she was eating a snack. Mia looked up in surprise as the staff gestured toward the crowded area to find space for the new arrivals. Seeing the large crowd, Tea-Soo suggested returning later, and Hee-Soo awkwardly agreed. She stared at the pair in surprise as they hesitated near her table. She quickly offered them the adjacent seats reserved for her group as her friend excitedly recognized them. The two intoxicated girls clung to her as she inquired if anyone else was joining their group. She then turned to him for his input after learning the club only had 4 members. She asked him what he thought they should do about the invitation. He hesitated, looking slightly flustered by the sudden attention. He admitted he felt awkward crashing a members-only gathering as he spoke with her. Dabin declared to Tea-Soo that he could no longer run away from her. She suddenly tackled him from behind, catching him completely off guard as he walked. She clung to his back with a fierce and determined expression, refusing to let him move. She angrily accused him of constantly ignoring her despite her extreme popularity with other guys. He desperately tried to shake her off, but she clung to him tighter and refused to let go. The Sunbee wondered aloud why the girls were so drunk, quickly realizing the whiskey she brought must have been incredibly potent. Crying, she confessed that she had waited for him every single day. She admitted to him that she had initially only wanted to mess with him. Her face flushed red as she admitted that somewhere along the way her intentions had shifted. Just as she was about to confess her true feelings, she abruptly vomited all over him. Haeyoon rubbed Dabin's back over a toilet, advising her to let everything out slowly. Tea-Soo angrily scrubbed his stained shirt in the sink, complaining that disasters always struck at the worst times. Dabin slept slumped over on the table beside her friends. Haeyoon sat opposite Mia at a table while their friend rested nearby. She remarked that the earlier events had been incredibly chaotic. Haeyoon explained that the mess occurred because their group ended up drinking with the crowd of picture seekers. Mia stated that she was the exact woman Tea-Soo had searched for all these years. She noted that Hee-Soo had vanished without telling him. She then pointed out her companion's surprising sobriety. She explained she avoided alcohol due to her medication, then added that she was undeniably pretty. She agreed, admitting she would easily fall for her at first sight if she were a man. She questioned if that beauty alone was enough to make him abandon his entire life and harbor feelings for years. She quietly wondered if she possessed a special charm as she happily called out to him. Surprised by his quick return, she listened as he explained he only went back to grab an extra department shirt. Observing their obvious closeness, she watched as he checked on her and suggested they head out. Before they could leave, the older woman spoke up to catch their attention. She abruptly asked her and him if the two of them were still dating. The older woman watched them with a warm smile, waiting to see how they would react. Amidst the noisy pub environment, a moment of sudden, confused tension settled over the group. She looked toward the older woman with a strained expression. Maintaining a strained smile, she asked the Sunbee to repeat her question. Blaming the loud festival crowd, she claimed she could not hear what was just said. Realizing her massive slip of the tongue, the Sunbee panicked. He watched her with concern and asked if she was feeling all right. Horrified by her mistake, she clamped a hand over her mouth. She abruptly jumped out of her seat, startling the couple. The Sunbee nervously apologized and claimed she had simply blanked out. Overwhelmed by the revelation, she covered her face and fled while the others called out to her. Song Hee-Soo reflected on her unspoken feelings while examining a worn, muddy shoe. Sitting in the dark, she watched Han Tea-Soo sleep. She wondered about the mysterious woman he was searching for. She noted that his relentless search had left him completely exhausted. Staring at a partially hidden photograph, she wondered who could inspire him to abandon his entire life. She approached the dresser in the quiet room. She reached for the hidden picture frame to see the face inside. Overcome with emotion, she clutched her chest tightly. Admitting her deep jealousy over his devotion to another, she quickly ran away. Hee-Soo sprints away from the crowd while internally berating herself for her foolishness. She questions why she took flight so suddenly. She knows that Tea-Soo rarely spoke without thinking things through first. The memory of their previous interactions weighs heavily on her mind. A sudden shout calling out her title startles her. He desperately chases after her and asks her to wait. Mia yells at him for abandoning their food order to join the pursuit. She keeps pace with the frantic chase. She realizes with shock that Mia is also actively chasing her. He ignores her demands to look after their drunk friends and insists they must catch her first. A tearful Sunbi begs her pursuers to stop following her. She cries out in sheer embarrassment as they continue their relentless chase. An exhausted Mia loudly complains about the endless running while continuing to chase her. A confused bystander observes the chaotic chase heading past the science prep room. Exhausted from running, Mia collapsed onto a sofa before Hee-Soo suddenly surprised her from behind. She pinned the resting girl against the couch, stating she could not escape anymore, as Mia startled and addressed her senior. Panting heavily, she looked down in confusion and stammered her name. She admitted her confusion over her sudden departure, but demanded her senior return quietly now that she was caught. Hee-Soo asked why Mia followed her, eventually realizing she had inexplicably ended up chasing the younger girl instead. Meanwhile, an exhausted Tea-Soo searched the crowded festival grounds for the missing pair. Back inside the building, she handed her a canned sports drink. She apologized for lacking exact change, so Hee-Soo quickly dismissed the concern and offered to pay for the drinks. Sipping their beverages together, she cheerfully noted that she had not run like that in ages. Smiling warmly, she admitted she had not run around so carelessly since elementary school. As she complimented her senior's running speed, Hee-Soo internally realized that she was the exact girl he had been searching for. She reflected on how he had never been able to get her out of his heart. She wondered if her lingering doubts and jealousy stemmed from watching him constantly search for this girl all that time in the past. She asked her to step back, prompting a quick apology before she questioned why she had fled earlier. Hae-yoon stared at her in silence, her expression unreadable after the blunt question. She pressed the senior further, asking if there was something specific she had wanted to tell her earlier. In the restroom, Hee-Soo asked if Hae-yoon had deduced her past relationship with Tea-Soo from the clothes she lent her. She admitted it was only a guess and explained that she had followed up with her to confirm her suspicions. She watched intently as the senior realized there was no longer any use in hiding the truth. She conceded that there was no point in denying her past identity to her any longer. She frankly admitted to her that she and he used to date. Drying her hands, she clarified that their brief high school relationship had ended badly and they had not seen each other in ages. She added that he likely held no fond memories of her because she had vanished without a word. She confessed with a sad smile that she had simply lacked the courage to break up properly in the past. She casually noted that she could easily end things a dozen times now. She offered to set boundaries with him to ensure Hee-Soo felt comfortable dating him. She added that he frequently praised the senior for helping him settle in and admitted his growing feelings for her. She listened in stunned silence as the dark-haired girl chuckled about him, fearing a misunderstanding. Hae-yoon reassured Hee-Soo that she and Tea-Soo were strictly old neighborhood friends. Advising her to relax, she turned to leave but was immediately halted. She demanded an explanation, prompting a confused Hae-yoon to repeat her encouragement regarding him. She angrily questioned how Hae-yoon could dismiss the situation so lightly. She revealed that he had spent years desperately searching for her, leaving Hae-yoon completely speechless. A young man sprinted desperately while a voice questioned if she truly understood the depths of his search for her. Mia confronted the startled Sunbi and demanded confirmation that Tea-Soo had confessed his enduring feelings for her. The Sunbi protested that it made no sense, prompting her to reveal that he had spent years searching for her. The Sunbi questioned her motives. She asked if she was worried about any lingering feelings. She laughed off her comment as a mere slip of the tongue and turned to leave the room. Smiling brightly, she admitted to phrasing her words poorly, but insisted the core truth remained unaffected. She plainly stated that he was currently in love with the Sunbi. The Sunbi froze in shock as she boldly asked if she reciprocated his feelings. She casually dismissed herself and walked out the door while the Sunbi called out her name in bewilderment. Hee-Soo grabbed Mia by the head and stated that she still liked him. She stared back in wide-eyed shock. She nervously tried to deny it. However, she cornered her against the counter and insisted that her relationship with him was already settled. She pointed an accusatory finger at her. This left her confused and on the verge of tears. Tea-Soo sprinted into the student center. He cursed his own stupidity for not checking the most obvious location sooner. He grabbed the door handle, reflecting that the darkest place was often right under the lamp. He threw the door open and froze in shock upon finding a tearful Mia inside. He stared at her in stunned silence, unable to move as he processed her unexpected presence. He uttered her name in sheer disbelief as Mia looked up at him through her tears. The young girl sobbed and called out to him in return. Tea-Soo asked if she had really been hiding there all along and demanded to know where Hee-Soo went. The young man called out for her to wait as she suddenly turned and sprinted away into the distance. His panicked shouting inadvertently startled Haeun, who happened to be nearby. She stopped in her tracks, completely caught off guard by the commotion. She began blushing profusely as she noted her Sunbi's sudden appearance. Overwhelmed, Hee-Soo bolted up a nearby stairwell with him in close pursuit. They both eventually stopped on the stairs, panting from sheer exhaustion. He reacted with stunned confusion when she suddenly questioned him about his relationship with Cha-Mia. Still deeply flushed, she confessed that she had accidentally blurted out her internal thoughts. She covered her face in embarrassment while he silently concluded that she must have discussed the situation with her. She recalled a previous encounter and wondered why she had been pressed for details regarding his connection to Mia. A sudden realization struck him as he remembered the night she had caught him and her together outside. Panicking, he frantically insisted that the late-night incident at his place was a complete misunderstanding. Her expression softened warmly as she gently assured him that she already knew the truth. She told him that she knew he was not joking and acknowledged that his relationship with Mia was completely over. Confused by her continued reluctance, he asked why she was still hesitating. She admitted there was a lingering question she had always been too afraid to ask him. She confessed that her own fear had kept her from confronting him about the issue sooner. She looked straight at him, capturing his attention with a serious gaze. She directly asked when he had finally decided to give up on her. He froze in utter shock at her unexpected question. She reminded him of the years he spent obsessively searching and saving money just for a chance to find her. Tea-Soo stood in stunned silence as she questioned his sudden shift in devotion. Hee-Soo tearfully asked how he could abandon his lifelong goal so easily. She finished by confessing how much the realization had tormented her. She finally voiced her deepest insecurity, asking him if he had only chosen her because Mia refused to take him back. The crying senior asked him if his confession was just a way to forget her. He reacted with shock and confusion as he listened to her painful accusations. She tearfully blamed her own pathetic indecisiveness and inability to be confident in herself. She reminded him that 4 years had passed since their time together began. She recalled his lingering attachment to old photographs that he still kept close. Even after all the time they had spent together, she felt she was still competing with his past. Clutching her chest, she lamented her complete inability to push her out of his heart. She confessed through her tears that her inferiority complex made it impossible to accept his sudden claim of moving on from her. She broke down on the stairs, unable to believe his heart could shift so quickly after years of longing. He watched in stunned silence as she explained her desperate intention to forget everything and leave. He silently reflected on how he had finally abandoned his exhausting search for her the previous year. He acknowledged that she had inevitably slipped away like sand through his fingers, despite all his futile efforts to hold on. He firmly denied the accusation that his confession to her was merely a tactic to forget his past with Cha-Mia. Standing before her, he clarified the sincerity of his current feelings for her. He stated with conviction that his past affection for her was no longer a factor in his life or his heart. She quietly questioned his truthfulness and turned to walk away as he anxiously called out her name. She hesitated for a long moment before looking back and asking if he could do something for her. Tears welled in her eyes as she explicitly asked him to kiss her right then. He stammered in shock, prompting her to sadly conclude that he could not follow through. She stepped back down the stairs. She told him that he did not need to force an answer. Hee-Soo stated she already knew how much the other woman meant to Tea-Soo. A brief memory surfaced. She claimed she had seen enough to understand his lingering feelings. He internally questioned why she was pushing the issue and assuming he still loved Mia. Grabbing her firmly by the shoulders, he demanded to know if that was her only reason. In a past memory, Tisu told Mia that he had no other choice. He leaned in closely toward her face. He pulled her into a firm embrace, then he leaned forward and kissed her. Back in the present, Sunbi stood panting after slapping Tisu, who held his red cheek and asked why she hit him. She angrily retorted that she should be the one asking that question. Hisu scolded him for suddenly kissing her, but he calmly explained that he merely followed her earlier request to do so. She grew flustered and immediately denied it. She called him weird for blindly kissing someone on command. He stared back intently and asked for her thoughts on the kiss. He stepped closer and asked if his actions still felt like a mere punishment game to her. She stared back at him in stunned silence. She nervously questioned why someone like him would ever like someone like her. He replied that he was doing this to figure out his own feelings. He confessed that his heart constantly raced around her and leaned in, suggesting they kiss one more time to see if anything felt different. He recalled her closing her eyes as they leaned in for a kiss. Glasses fell to the floor as he realized his racing heart felt exactly the same as when he first kissed her. Inside the prep room, Tisu groaned in pain while a worried Sunbi asked if he was all right. He dabbed a scratch on his cheek that was caused by her reflexive strike when he leaned in for a kiss. She apologized for her reaction, but he brushed it off by calling out her fake confidence. He pointed out that her romantic boldness clearly came from media and hearsay, since she lacked any real experience. He reminded her of the previous times her attempts to act tough had completely backfired. Tisu recalled that his interest in Sunbi first sparked when he noticed her perfectly composed demeanor despite her wealthy background. He remembered how she gradually let her guard down around him, showing a clumsier side while he looked after her. While sharing a meal together, he looked at her and realized the depth of his feelings. He realized he had fallen for the vulnerable and honest side of her that only he was ever allowed to see. Hisu gently placed a bandage over Tisu's scratch as she admitted her own awkwardness. He confessed he never expected to run into Mir again after a detective agency advised him to stop searching. He admitted he had been on the verge of giving up the search himself and questioned why she viewed herself so negatively. He explained that Mia had directly told him she wanted them to live as strangers, while Hisu listened in stunned silence. He admitted that while he had not completely forgotten his past, his current feelings were genuine. He added that he was already satisfied with reality and wanted to stop chasing dreams. She looked at him with wide, emotional eyes, processing his heartfelt words. He confessed that simply knowing Mia was alive and well was enough for him. Seeing Mia happy from a distance allowed him to finally let go of the past and move forward. He stated that knowing she lived an ordinary campus life was all he needed. He then gently asked her to stop doubting his intentions. He challenged her belief that he was just using her to forget his past. Stepping closer, he suggested they finish what they had started earlier to prove his sincerity. Clarifying his intentions, he specifically mentioned the kiss they had left incomplete. He leaned intimately close to her blushing face. He told her she could push him away if she wanted as he pressed her back against the office cabinets. She softly murmured his name as they finally closed the distance and kissed. The two did a deep kiss against the cabinets while bright flashes from the fireworks illuminated the room around them. As the second day of the festival began, a group of girls stared in shock at a surprising sight. Tisu stood before them wearing a tight black dress and full makeup, prompting one of the girls to suggest adding a wig to complete the outfit. The group agreed that he was their only chance at winning the event. They then turned to ask a distracted Mia for her thoughts on his feminine outfit. Flustered and caught off guard, she mumbled that his appearance was more or less fine. She quickly looked away, her face flushing from the unexpected encounter. Claiming she felt unwell, Mia quickly excused herself and left the room. The others wondered why she had been spacing out all day. She recalled a past conversation, where someone asked what he would do if another girl still had feelings for him. As she walked alone, she pondered if she would still be the one he chose in that scenario. Her face burned bright red as she silently questioned if he still harbored feelings for her. 3 days passed since the festival started. A campus announcement officially marked the orderly closing of the festival. With the festival concluded, the anticipated rivalry between the Medicom and social welfare departments began. Tisu appeared completely unfazed by the brewing conflict. The Medicom department crushed the social welfare department in every athletic event thanks to Dabin's overwhelming physical prowess. The highly anticipated cross-dressing event began, leaving him to watch the stage in utter disbelief. 𝒩𝒂 confidently stepped onto the stage disguised as a stunning woman, and Tissue struggled to reconcile this beauty with the obnoxious guy he usually wanted to strangle. He nearly secured first place with his flawless appearance. However, his chances plummeted the moment he prepared to give a self-introduction. His prospects were ruined the instant he opened his disastrous mouth. Following 𝒩𝒂's heavily censored introduction, Tissue walked across campus. He noticed another significant shift in the atmosphere as he spotted Dabin nearby. He approached her and asked if she had managed to get home okay the other day. The question caused her face to flush bright red as she recalled the embarrassing incident. Her panic intensified when he loudly brought up the matter of the laundry fee. In a state of complete embarrassment, she sprinted away while shouting that she had apologized enough. Later, Tissue cheerfully intercepted the social welfare president in the campus hallway. She cornered the rival president and fiercely reminded her of the festival wager they had made. She firmly demanded that the losing department finally fulfill their promise to bow at a strict 90-degree angle. True to the bet, the social welfare president was publicly forced to bow at a deep 90-degree angle upon encountering Tissue. Tissue stood in awe as he witnessed the humiliating exchange. He quietly observed her walk past him. She shifted the conversation to her love life. She recalled seeing him the previous night. The two did a sudden kiss before pulling away in breathless surprise. She asked a flustered Tissue if he still doubted her, admitting she thought their relationship was progressing well after the kiss. He abruptly pinned her against the lockers. She reminded him of her previous claim about sensing his hardships. She thought back to the time she told him that she would keep her special ability a secret. She shocked him by confessing that she had entirely fabricated that ability back then. She explained it was merely an excuse to talk to him, though she noted she could genuinely read his emotions now. Observing his flustered state, she assured him that she believed his feelings for her were completely genuine. She questioned his troubled expression. She then asked if he had never officially broken up with his previous partner. She suggested that both he and the other woman likely still had unresolved issues. He walked away in silence, unable to respond to her. He recalled her calm acceptance that his genuine feelings for her were enough. He berated himself for freezing up and questioned if it even made sense for 𝒩𝒂 to still harbor feelings for him. He recalled a past encounter where she firmly stated their relationship was completely over. She looked back at him, insisting that everything between them was finished. He pondered Tissue's earlier question, wondering if he and 𝒩𝒂 truly never had a proper breakup. Tissue called Elise to ask if she could postpone her plans to stay at her apartment while studying abroad. She clarified that the delay was not due to marriage issues, but because she finally encountered the person she always wanted to defeat. Staring out her window, Tissue expressed a strong desire to finally win. Elsewhere, Tissue walked down a hallway and noticed a dark-haired woman staring at him. He stopped as he realized Haeun was watching him with a steady gaze. Standing outside an apartment door, the dark-haired woman asked him if he was her neighbor. 𝒩𝒂 informed her companion that he was the guy from the festival. When he asked if something was wrong, she casually claimed his face just looked familiar. She suddenly accused him of grabbing her chest while wearing a mascot suit at the festival. He frantically panicked and insisted it was just an accident. He recognized her and called out her name in surprise. The younger girl nervously asked her a question. She wanted to know why she was out there. She noted that the younger girl had finally shown her face. Panicking, the younger girl made a sudden excuse about an urgent matter and attempted to flee. She forcefully grabbed the fleeing girl by the head and accused her of intentionally turning off her phone. The younger girl loudly protested that her battery had simply died. He awkwardly apologized for interrupting their dispute. He then asked the two women to clarify their exact relationship. She jokingly started to claim they were mother and daughter, leaving him in utter shock. He demanded she explain properly while she violently shook the younger girl. The younger girl clarified that 𝒩𝒂 was just her older sister. He noted they similar facial features. She confirmed the man's identity as him and called him over to deliver something. Approaching the confused man, she sternly instructed him to tighten his stomach. She looked at him with intense determination for a split second. Without hesitation, she delivered a devastating punch directly into his gut. He collapsed to the floor in pain. While he lay on the ground, she frantically checked on his condition. The woman explained the strike was payback for his toxic online gaming behavior. He suddenly recalled a specific threat from an angry user in the past. He realized the imposing woman standing before him was the notorious player Corrupted Power Angel. The woman was actually a top-ranked guild master and massive spender within the game's community. This same woman was also the reason 𝒩𝒂 and Mia had previously crossed paths at the police station. He admitted he had lent his account out and assumed the online persona was her, leading the woman to express disbelief at his carelessness. She confessed to using his name for a new account after her own was banned for fighting. He realized why she had been so irritable whenever the subject of video games came up. He finally understood that he had unknowingly confronted the guild master during that past police incident. She apologized for striking him, and he assured her that he would not escalate the issue or threaten to sue. As he prepared to leave, he questioned her sudden rush and asked why she was in such a hurry. He finally asked if she was an only child, leaving her visibly startled and blushing. The older woman confronted the young man for breaking their promise to set the door lock password to her birthday. Dabin looked on nervously as the older woman vented her frustration regarding the changed security code. The tension escalated when she was asked why she was rummaging through people's belongings without their permission. She reminded him of his past assurance that she would always be able to check on him immediately in case of an emergency. The older woman's hand stopped as she reached for a specific item among the books on the shelf. She then questioned why Dabin was alone without Sua, noting she had seen the two of them together at her recent festival. She stood awkwardly while the woman sat down to carefully examine a notebook she had discovered. She claimed Sua was merely attending a concert, but the woman flipped through a diary to an entry from February 17th. The older woman revealed the diary and pointed out she could have easily confronted him while he was wearing a mascot suit. The older woman demanded an explanation for why the diary entries completely stopped after early April. The young girl hesitated and struggled to form a response. A flashback revealed the young girl working at a restaurant where a customer had to remind her about his drink order because she had entirely forgotten it. She began keeping a diary on her own, documenting her move to a slightly more expensive room with a private bathroom during the spring following her 19th birthday. She bitterly reflected that the woman should have disappeared much sooner, remembering the cruel parting words that demanded she show gratitude for being raised. Reaching her hand upward, she questioned if she should have been the one to leave first. A memory of a warmly smiling boy flashed in her mind. She reflected on how easily the other girl had discarded her until a strange sensation suddenly snapped her back to reality. Her eyes widened in sudden shock. She questioned what had just inexplicably happened to her. Walking outside the apartment building at sunset, 𝒩𝒂 pondered a nagging suspicion. Approaching an apartment door, he admitted to himself that the situation was deeply bothering him and questioned whether Mia actually had an older sister at all. Visualizing the older woman holding her, he noted he had never heard of her existence before. He reasoned that someone like her would have easily stood out in their neighborhood. Picturing the tall woman again, he realized that she had never once mentioned having a sibling. He realized his lingering unease stemmed from how deeply he had cared for the older woman. Standing outside the apartment, he heard his own name mentioned from within, but decided he should ignore the conversation. Turning to leave the hallway, he was suddenly intercepted by 𝒩𝒂. She smiled as she caught him lurking near the door. She questioned his presence there, causing him to flinch in surprise. The apartment door abruptly swung open as Mia angrily demanded to know why he was loitering. She froze in shock, her anger vanishing as soon as she noticed her presence. A black-haired woman questioned a man's absence, prompting him to conclude his suspicions were correct after observing her panicked reaction. The black-haired woman bluntly confronted her, asking if she had kept the secret hidden from him. 𝒩𝒂 hid someone tensely around a violently corner, slammed a fake downstairs. Painful conversation from there inside an office hiding MS spot. Trembling and close to tears, she listened as the woman taunted her about being seen as a pitiful girl again. Someone violently slammed a fake electrical outlet onto a desk, angrily demanding an explanation. Inside an office MS. Choi furiously confronted a bald man, accusing him of planting the fake outlet to use as a hidden camera against her. She threatened her business partner with jail time for his betrayal while Hae-eun stood nearby holding a tea tray in shock. She watched the scene, nervously recalling this period as the second hardest time in her life. Left panicked and jobless after her wages failed to arrive, she anxiously wondered how she would handle her rent. Her landlord aggressively confronted her outside her door, completely ignoring her desperate apologies and promises to pay the following month. The landlord smirked lecherously and reached out, suggesting she could settle her debt through alternative non-monetary means. Wandering through the bustling streets alone, Hae-eun realized that displaying weakness only invited predators to exploit her. She walked cautiously, aware that being alone in the city made her an easy target for those seeking to take advantage. She was haunted by the memory of creepy men offering conditional help, realizing their kindness was merely a facade. While her present self imagined violently retaliating against those pieces of trash, her younger self was left with nothing and no one to rely on. Overwhelmed by her dire financial situation, she felt entirely helpless and wondered how long she could possibly survive. She trembled violently while reading a menacing text message that demanded she prepare for an upcoming interest collection. Realizing she had to hide, she visited an agency but was turned away for still having a registered guardian. Desperate for work, she begged at a local restaurant for any opportunity, but she was immediately rejected. The restaurant staff quietly agreed not to hire Mia after noting her shabby appearance and the risks of taking in a runaway. She walked away in absolute defeat. Overwhelmed and completely alone, she wept silently while admitting to herself that she was just a stubborn kid crippled by pride. Staring at the meager handful of coins resting in her palm, she sat alone on a public bench and silently wondered what to do next. Her stomach growled loudly as she lamented failing to find a job for 10 straight days. Gripping a canned drink, she realized her situation was rapidly becoming dire. A sudden memory of a smiling Tissue sitting beside her flashed in her mind. The vivid thought caused her to gasp and flush with sudden anxiety. She frantically shook her head to dispel his face from her thoughts, wondering if she should beg him for help. She silently acknowledged that she had utterly lost the right to approach him for aid. She envisioned him standing far out of her reach, depicted as a royal figure surrounded by faceless peers. The girl cried while recalling her decision to run away and sever ties. Sitting outside, she wept while clutching a canned drink. She recalled their closeness in a classroom, remembering the bond she once had with him. She wondered if the boy from her past would ever forgive her. She remembered that he alone accepted her when others vandalized her desk and rejected her. Dismissing her hopes as ridiculous, she sat alone on the bench. Assuming he had forgotten her and moved abroad, Hae-eun gripped her drink. She abruptly looked up. A sudden thought struck her, prompting her to walk away. She stopped directly in front of a red public telephone booth. She reached out toward the phone. She grabbed the telephone receiver. She lifted the receiver inside the booth while pedestrians walked past. She stood in stunned silence. She entered a public telephone booth and lifted the receiver. She confessed internally that she remained uncertain. As two people sat together at sunset, she wondered if the contact number had already been changed. She pressed the phone to her ear and waited through the ringing. The dialing stopped as someone answered the call with a brief greeting. Her eyes widened in sudden shock upon hearing the caller. Her hand trembled as she cautiously returned the greeting, recognizing the voice after years of silence. Mia remembered how familiar Tissue's voice used to be during their time together in school. On the other end of the line, he confusedly asked why she was not speaking. She stood paralyzed in the phone booth as he continued to ask if she was there or saying anything. She hesitated nervously in the phone booth, mentally preparing to ask him if he was still getting ready. He explained to a female senior that his preparations were interrupted by a call, but assured her it wouldn't take long. Hearing a click on the line, he wondered if the caller had hung up while the senior questioned what had just happened. Trembling outside the booth, she worried that he might have mistaken her sudden hang-up for a prank call. Her eyes suddenly snapped wide open in shock. Mia woke up in an unfamiliar bed and groggily asked about her location as an older woman calmly noted her awakening. The woman explained they were in a church and asked if she remembered the recent events, to which the girl responded with utter confusion. The older woman revealed she had found her collapsed on the street, causing a sudden wave of realization to wash over her. Mia recalled leaving her canned coffee on a bench, but upon returning to drink it, she realized it had been contaminated with cigarette butts. She frantically ate scavenged scraps after being abandoned in a dark alley. She ultimately collapsed on the pavement as people walked past her without a second glance. A local pastor's wife rescued her by offering her a warm meal and a temporary bed in a small storage room. She thanked her savior while the older woman quietly checked on her through the door. The pastor's wife later found the room empty, discovering a few coins and a note from her promising to repay her kindness. She wandered the city streets while questioning whether her recent fate was lucky or unlucky. She reflected that a past mistake was the only reason she had met the woman who saved her life. She eventually arrived outside a bustling local restaurant. An exhausted Mia briefly rested on the kitchen floor before her boss sharply ordered her to clear tables and wash dishes. Thanks to a recommendation from the pastor's wife, she worked diligently cleaning tables to earn her own money again. A collector accepted an envelope of cash from her, noting that her payment was exact but slightly late. She desperately yelled at the debt collector that she could not run away, fearing what his people would do to her mother. The man coldly reminded her that her mother had already passed away and she had suffered her whole life. He mocked her stubborn refusal to accept an easier, illicit way to make money instead of working odd jobs. She quietly ate a simple rice ball in complete isolation while reflecting on her coworkers' judgmental questions. Kiss with a man from her, she passed quietly ate, knowing she could never simple return to those rice balls. Judgmental questions. A dark memory surfaced, revealing a deeply distraught Mia sobbing uncontrollably while strapped into a vehicle seat. Acknowledging that her past could not be undone, she questioned if her current struggle was merely stubbornness. Her thoughts drifted to Tea-Soo, the man she once loved, who had already moved on with another woman. She broke into a bitter laugh over being endlessly chained down by poverty, wondering if an ordinary life was a luxury she could never afford. She watched carefree students walk by, lamenting that she was forced into adulthood without finishing her education. Eating a meager meal, she watched ants scavenge nearby and wondered if she was still allowed to have dreams despite her poverty. Construction workers praised her tireless work ethic as she carried heavy loads, which reminded her of standing beside her late mother's hospital bed. She recalled how her dying mother had told her that a person only truly perishes when they surrender their dreams. Gripping her dying mother's hand, Mia absorbed the advice through her tears. Looking out over the construction site, she resolved to keep a dream alive for a better future. Wiping sweat from her brow, she questioned if someone in her desperate situation was even allowed to possess such a luxury. Her thoughts immediately drifted back. Firmly slipped and she plummeted, clutched a backward withdrawal off the form in an empty construction ledge class. Firmly to offer to Tea-Soo, the pay young 5 man she once times his usual loved rate. Slipped and she plummeted, clutched a backward withdrawal off the form in an empty construction ledge classroom. She proposed paying him the high wage specifically for that night. She bluntly asked him to sell himself to her, which instantly triggered a memory of her childhood birthday. She recalled a joyful moment from her past. Tea-Soo extended his hand, leaving her stunned as she wondered if her desperate plan was actually working. They grasped hands as she questioned the rapid progression, Mia lying weakly on a medical monitor. She awoke groggily with a bandaged face in a hospital room as evening fell outside the building. A tall senior stood by the bed and quickly dismissed her confusion regarding her sudden hospitalization. The dark-haired senior stared down at the injured girl in complete silence. She asked to make a quick stop before they left the hospital, prompting the senior to finally address her by name. The dark-haired visitor asked if she had come to see Tea-Soo, noting she had been bedridden for half a year, while she repeated the time frame in confusion. Hazy memories depicted a figure falling down a staircase. The visitor explained that witnesses claimed the patient suddenly staggered and fell. Standing over the bed, the visitor pressed her to recall any small detail, suggesting she might have been pushed from behind. Startled by her surroundings, she stared in shock at the woman standing by her bedside. The visitor noticed the intense gaze and asked why she was looking at her like that. Observing the patient's silence, the woman calmly prompted her to ask if she had a question. The visitor stood by the bed and glanced back in surprise as Mia made a sudden noise. Later that night, Hae-yoon stood on the street holding her phone and mentioned Tea-Soo's room. She waved her car keys to correct her companion's sense of direction as they headed toward the vehicle. She then questioned why a certain event had occurred during their visit. The senior remained silent as the blonde woman began to speak with a cheerful expression. The blonde woman presented a small hammer, suggesting they use the good communication tool for physical persuasion. The senior asked if she had perhaps run into the kid's ex and had it out with him. The blonde woman deduced that her companion had skipped the concert specifically to spy on them. The senior agreed that the situation they were in was starting to look seriously dangerous. Slumping over a desk, Mia grimaced as a voice asked about the sisterly reunion, causing her to bitterly curse the failed meeting. The senior realized the caller correctly guessed that Mia had rejected her again and complained that they already knew the outcome. Entering an apartment corridor, the blonde woman commented that Mia was just as remarkably stubborn as the senior. Consistently written in her diary since that specific day opening her door, Haeun questioned the comparison being made between them. D meant by the word apologizing for broken. Failed to she froze produce in utter results. Consistently written in her diary since that specific day. D meant by the word apologizing for broken. Eavesdropping, she asked what her companion had meant by the word broken. Failed to she froze produce in utter results, shock upon hearing her direct question about her private thoughts. She stood paralyzed in the doorway, unable to form a response to the sudden confrontation. She pressed further and asked about the mention of a ticking time bomb in the diary. She pointed toward her, emphasizing the gravity of the concerning metaphor. She began to cry silently at the question, her eyes welling with tears as she smiled sadly. The two women stood awkwardly in the open doorway before she tentatively asked if there was an issue. Wiping away her shock, the black-haired woman asked if Mia had a mental problem. She then abruptly mentioned the Hiju gas station. She swallowed hard and wished she could love someone ordinarily. Her actions caught the attention of the black-haired woman beside her. The black-haired woman opened a nearby door while Mia silently hoped for a normal life. The black-haired woman watched in confusion. She clutched her chest and suddenly wondered where she was. Standing in the open doorway, the black-haired woman asked if she was finally awake and had slept well. The black-haired woman hesitated quietly. Later, at a brightly lit gas station, a young attendant looked up in surprise and asked a newcomer to identify herself. A suited woman introduced herself as attorney Ju Seojin. She explained that she had been appointed as his legal guardian following a recent accident. She held up a hand to signal for silence as the young man began to speak. Jimin passionately declared that his dream was to become a great teacher.